Well, good evening, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to round 4 of the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. Round 4 coming to you live here from the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit in West Germany, 100 kilometers south of Cologne and 150 kilometers west of Frankfurt. Considered the home of German motorsport, one of the largest racing facilities in the world. And this Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit neighboured with the infamous Nordschleife arena. We each have a different memory of the Nordschleife, whether it is a race, even the Nürburgring, whether it is a race such as the 1999 Formula 1 Grand Prix where Stewart took their one and only win, or whether it is Sabine Schmitz taking a van round the Nordschleife arena. We all have different memories of this circuit. It might be even a test drive you're taking your real life car on, but it is considered the behemoth of racing. Welcome to today's 4th round, and after today it will be the halfway mark of the championship for Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship, and today's race sponsored by AIS All Sports. So let's get into the thick of the action. My name is Alex Everitt, your commentator today, and Ed May is joined alongside me. Good evening, Ed.
Francorchamps, the 2-hour race that saw strategy and on-track battling throughout, and hopefully we'll be seeing much more of the same here at the Nürburgring. We're coming into the final few moments of qualifying. A few drivers out on their qualifying times following at the moment. Rodrigo Lazowski for the Fuel Tech Esports team, as he's completing, I believe, his final lap of qualifying. Drivers have 15 minutes to do 4 laps, and they take their very best lap of those 4, and that sets the grid for the first race. Rodrigo at the moment in the Pro Class 10th. You can see if he's going to make an improvement as he comes through the fast world endurance though chicane now, which really suits the downforce level that these LMP2 cars have, and as he rounds it out of the final corner, makes his way up to the line. Will this be a final improvement for Rodrigo? Well, I think the answer there isn't so, is it? It's not able to make any form of improvement there. So at the moment, 15th overall, 10th place in classes where he stands.
Absolutely, and the lone qualifying format we have this season, there's a few drivers already set their times, and it is Benson Minameffi, Peter Zuber and Diego Pereira. It's good to see him back after a long hiatus out of the championship, but they're our top 3 at the moment in the pros. First in the AMS, Theo Schlerer, he was the winner at Spa-Francorchamps last time out. James Ibram in 2nd, and in 3rd is Felipe Riquelme, who also got 3rd at Spa-Francorchamps. But in the meantime, let's have a look at the championship standings coming into tonight. So we'll start with the pro category, We have got Peter Zuber at the top of the standings for Race Clutch Red on 101 points. Peter Molnar in second place, followed by his teammate Ben Snamethi. It is Race Clutch dominating things at the moment in the championship. Jamie Conway in fourth, Apex Tech, with Alvaro Gutierrez in fifth. Mauricio Guerra, who was missing last time out at Spa-Francorchamps, he's in sixth, with Lucas Bacigalupo in seventh. Chris Barrett in eighth. Quite the entertainer last time out at Spa-Francorchamps, with Ivo Lauscher in ninth, and Juanto Ovale in 10th position. Meanwhile, in the AM category, we have got at the top of the standings James Ebram, who didn't have such a good meeting last time out at Spa-Francorchamps. I believe it was him who described his pit stops as a catastrophe. I believe he didn't fuel up enough on the first or second stop, I seem to remember, and it rather messed up the rest of his race, but he still leads the championship on 91 points. Justin Jung in second position, with Mark Winters in third. So the AM category shaping up to be very, very exciting indeed. And we're in warm-up, so we'll carry on. Theo Schlerer, our winner at Spa-Francorchamps last time out, in fourth place on 77 points, followed by Felipe Riquelme, who's knocking up a lot of podium finishes this season. He is in fifth. Christopher Stahl, who missed Spa-Francorchamps, has had 2 second-place finishes this season. He might be back today and with a bang, potentially. He's in sixth at the moment. Alvaro Fernandez in seventh, and Carlos Ponce eighth. Hans Blankart in 9th, with Andy Spicer rounding out the top 10 in the AM category. So the colour codes to look out for on the standings today. The orange colour symbolises the Pro category, and the blue category symbolises the AM category. We're having a few issues already with our standings. It doesn't seem to want to go away rather sharpish, so but it's a bit about the Nürburgring. We thought it was going to be the Nordschleife today until recently, but it's a shame. It's rather a shame. But these LMP2 cars very well suited to a track like the Nürburgring, despite there being short straights. Quite a twisty track. It is one very, very well suited to these cars. High downforce cars on such a tight and twisty track with a banking in the hairpin we just saw there. Quite an interesting track. Don't you agree?
Yeah, an excellent circuit. As we see them come now through what would be probably the most enjoyable bit of the circuit for these drivers in the LMP2, up through the Schumacher S's, then into left-hander again. Our overlay's having a slight little hiccup there, as you see a hiccup there from Alvaro Fernandez Montes going through the right-hander and making a bit of a meal of it, but then into the chicane as well, using all of the downforce here, following Mark Winters for the digital downforce racing car. They're just using their little bit of practice time to get to grips to find the limits of the cars on full fuel, on a full 75% limited tank of fuel. Don't forget, because these drivers aren't able to take full tanks on board, which means that they will be expected to make pit stops on the half-hour mark, and that's going to be crucial for this race. Maybe not so much as it was at, say, Spa-Francorchamps, because you're not flat out for as much as a lap. You do have more areas to save fuel, like into this area, the Mercedes Arena section that we see the Iridium Motorsports car go through here for Alvaro Gutierrez Menendez. Other drivers as well getting some much needed time and practice. Andy Spicer, and Andy, he's a bit of a spicy driver. We don't really often see him in mistakes. Let's hope that at least see a cleaner race from the Apex Tech racing driver.
Absolutely, and reminder of the results last week. Particular drivers to look out for as they've established themselves well in the championship fights in their respective categories. We've got the Hungarians of Peter Molnar, Peter Zuber and Ben Snamethi to look out for today, all three of which are racing today as we watch Peter Zuber come round the top section of the track. And in the AM category, the top three at Spa-Francorchamps were Theo Schlerer of Virtual Best Racing. What a race he had. Really did light things up. We've got Justin Jung as well of T3 Esports, second place at Spa-Francorchamps, and Felipe Riquelme, off-track racing in... no, he's not off-track racing, he is of Punto CL Racing. I remember being told off about that last time. He was third place at Spa-Francorchamps, and a lot of drivers out on track at the moment try and get a little bit of additional practice in. A couple of laps can be set on this track in warm-up. not the shortest of Grand Prix circuits in the world, but one of the shortest tracks on our calendar this season. We have been to round 1 all them weeks ago. Excuse me.
Hockenheim Ring, I believe.
Yeah, mind blank for a minute there. Hockenheim, round 1. Round 2, VIR, the Virginia International Raceway, and third was Spa-Francorchamps. Round 4 here today is at the Nürburgring, and then round 5 on the 11th of July will be at Monza, one of my favourite circuits we're heading to then, and then round 6 will be on July the 25th at Road America, followed by August the 8th will be Suzuka, and then the final round at Sebring on the 22nd of August. Sebring, one of the most iconic endurance tracks in the world, so what a place to end our season on the 22nd of August. Looking very much forward to that. But we are ending warm-up now. We are going to head straight into the thick of the racing. We'll go through the grid very, very shortly.
Yes, as we see the cars now vanish from our screens for a moment, get some nice scenic shots of the Nürburgring before the grid starts to form up, and we can see pole position going the way of Benson Mathy, making it a race clutch 1-2 with Peter Zuber alongside him on the front row. Diego Perina then third place for Impulse Racing ahead of Jamie Conway. Good qualifying from him. They have Peter Molnar, a race clutch car that will try to get up to his teammates in the early stages of the race, see if they can run away the same way that they did at Spa. Theo Schlerer makes it the best of the AMs in 6th place, completing the third row, with Chris Barrett in 7th and Juancho Aval 8th place. James Ibram starts the 5th row of the grid, with Laszlo Berdahani behind him, newcomer to the championship as well, newcomer into the AM championship fight. He'll be looking to impress on his debut. Drew Lloyd there in 11th, ahead of Felipe Riquelme, with Justin Young 13th, Alvaro Gutierrez 14th, with Rodrigo Lazowski just behind Hans Blankart, Carlos Ponce, and Kamal Hashimi in 18th, with Jonas Hansel 19th, Ryan Mars 20th, Alvaro Fernandez Montez 21st, ahead of Andy Spicer, Mark Winters, Daniel Nunes, EJ Fjellner, and Gabriel Stork, with Alexander Rogovic rounding out your 27-car grid for this, the 4th round of the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. And Alex, take us away as we come to the end of this pace lap.
Yes, drivers starting up and gridding up very late on in the lap of the Nürburgring. We go through the fast chicane here at the Nürburgring instead of the slow chicane. Pace car peels off, and Nemethi far ahead of the group here. They'll come around the Coca-Cola curve now, ready to start this 2-hour race here at the Nürburgring. He bunches up the grid, ready for lights to go green on this main straight of the Nürburgring, and we are away. Good start for Nemethi and Perina on the inside in the turquoise car alongside Peter Zuber. As we come down into turn 1, we'll enter the Mercedes arena now. Perina takes 2nd place away from Peter Zuber. Now into turn 1 they go. Zuber hanging on to the outside and therefore the inside for the next corner. Good recovery there from Peter Zuber. They're still side by side as we come through the Mercedes arena. Into turn 3 we go, still side by side. Brilliant racing early on in this race, a lot of twitchy rear ends coming through the arena there, and they all get through, well, some of them get through safe and sound. We do have a spin towards the back with Felipe Riquelme, who finished 3rd at Spa-Francorchamps. He's already jumped to the pits with a spin from him. Back here we've got the Apex Tech cars swapping positions, Chris Barrett and Jamie Conway coming through the 4th curve. Then down we go into the banked hairpin, most southerly part of the circuit. Into the corner we go, and let's have a sit rep on the AMs. Theo Schlerer dropped 1 place overall, but still first of the AM category, just ahead of James Ibram, 9th overall. He'll be hunting down Theo Schlerer, who got the better of him at Spa-Francorchamps due to a mishap in the strategy from James Ibram. He'll be looking for a good meeting this time out. Laszlo Berdani in 11th place overall, 3rd in the AM category. Not a bad start for him. Dropped 1 place, granted, but still high up in the AM category. Let's take a look at the Apex cars a bit further up. We've got Jamie Conway right behind Chris Barrett here as we come into the chicane, the fast chicane as we mentioned, so they don't drop down many gears. Normally the tighter chicane is around about 1st or 2nd gear for most cars, but they can blast through that chicane at quite a pace. But at the end of lap 1, it is unchanged in the top 3 as Benson Amethi leads the way at the front, who finished 3rd at Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago. Peter Zuber in 2nd place, the man who seems to like finishing 2nd place, it seems. He's just ahead of Diego Pereira. Welcome back to him. We saw him at the Hockenheimring finishing in the top 3 that day, but I believe he missed the Virginia International Raceway and he missed round 3 at Spa-Francorchamps, but back with a bang into the top 3 already. So let's just get a little bit of a look at what happened to Felipe Riquelme on the opening lap.
He was already slow, wasn't he, coming out of the first corner and then pulls off to the side. That could be a technical issue on his part. Either he's had the qualifying fuel left in, or maybe there's been an issue with his equipment. Come to live pictures though, and we see Diego Pereira. What a slide he had coming through the Mercedes arena section. What a save it was to keep control of his car. Sliding back into 3rd place there. Now behind Peter Zuber. Peter Molnar as well, not too far back in the race clutch car in 4th place. And their performance at Spa-Francorchamps was certainly one to behold, wasn't it? A great dominant drive from all of the race clutch drivers. Sorry. And you touched on Peter Zuber. He's finished 2nd a lot. I'm not sure if he likes finishing 2nd. I don't think any driver likes finishing 2nd, especially when it's your teammate in front of you. You want to be best of the bunch, don't you? So we might be seeing a renewed and maybe a reinvigorated Peter Zuber here.
Yeah. Hopefully we do, yeah. If he can get himself onto that top spot, he'll be incredibly relieved, incredibly pleased. But he is going to be potentially battling with his teammate with the intrusion of the Impulse Racing driver Diego Pereira, who has closed in a little bit on this lap on Peter Zuber. But he has got race clutch all around him. It's probably going to be negotiating them all race long, but he'll do his best, I'm sure, like most of these drivers will. And the Apex Tech Racing drivers seem to be working together now, trying to close up on the cars in front. They're the ones who are going to be battling race clutch in the team's championship. They're the ones who are going to have to try and close the gap and get in amongst the battling. Try and make a dent on race clutch's so far successful campaign. The AM category, Theo Schlerer has got a bit of a buffer to the AM category drivers behind. Justin Yoon has put himself up to 2nd place, a brilliant start for him. The man who finished 2nd at Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago. Great start to this race for him, up 3 places, and behind Hans Blankart. We didn't mention him much at Spa-Francorchamps, but a good start for him, up 5 places to 11th overall and 3rd in category. He's got James Ebram behind, and we've got another incident involving Riquelme. He got himself back out of the pits. He's coming out of the pits. Well, that rear end is all over the place. Something must have happened in turn 1. It just seemed that car was grabbing a little bit. Coming out of the pits, and he's aborted it. So not a good round for him, unfortunately. Be a bit gutted about that, as he's high up in the championship. But still, half the season to go after this race today. But not a good day for him indeed.
Yeah, maybe replay missed something there, because there was definitely something strange with that rear suspension, the car not wanting to play ball at all whatsoever as well. I think we've seen Laszlo Radahani having an incident. He's down in 22nd position. He was well up there in the AM Championship fight. So what's happened to the European driver? We can see that he's in his own little class, but that's because he was added to the series a little bit too late for us to update all of our project files and get that up to date. He is in the AM Championship, however, currently in 13th place there. And he was well up there, wasn't he, fighting with Justin Young and Hans Blankart for a while.
But a bit of work to do now to get back up the order for himself. In the meantime, we are looking at Diego Pereira. He's got race clutch in front of him, race clutch behind him. Peter Zuber dropping back a little bit from Benson Amethi. A bit of a Red Bull racing tactics going on here. Let Benson Amethi drive away and hold up Diego Pereira to have no threat on race clutch, picking up another win, unless Diego has something to say about that. He put in a stellar performance at the Hockenheim to finish 2nd, I believe, in that race. Meanwhile, we're looking at James Ebram here, and now Diego Pereira again as he closes in on Peter Zuber. However, this is a track that's, well, not only is it difficult to overtake on this track, It is difficult to catch people on this track. There's not very long straights, so you can't utilise the draft quite as much as we saw at Spa-Francorchamps a couple of weeks ago with the Kemmel Straight and the Blanchimont section. It's very much about your corner speed in this track, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, it really is, but you also touched on a good factor there. What we're seeing here is that these drivers, they are working together as a team, and like you mentioned, I'm at risk of sounding like David Crofty with this anecdote, but it's always better to have two cars racing for a victory, because if you're just left out with one person in front trying to race against two, then you've got nothing to fight with. You've got no teammates to help you out. So in this situation, well, Race Clutch, they've got three drivers all working for that race victory, and Diego Pereira, well, he might be like Lewis Hamilton, no teammate to help him because Bottas is hanging back in 10th place.
Exactly. Meanwhile, looking further back in the field, 8th in his category, that is Kamal Hashimi. Flash the lights to the driver in front of Andy Spicer, looking to get past him. The two Americans going at it. Hashimi feels he's quicker. He wants past very swiftly so he can work his way up the order, presumably, or he seems to think it's so anyway. Alexander Rogenbuch has had an instant further back coming out of the chicane. Oh, hit it onto the grass and spins across the track. But able to keep going. He'd be glad there's no walls to fall right to his car there. Manages to carry on quite far down the order and quite far behind the pack, unfortunately, is Alexander. But we'll see. It's a long race. He might be able to work his way up. Catching up with the live action here. We're still looking at Andy Spicer, who hasn't let through his teammate yet. I mean, tend to find in sim racing series there aren't quite as many strict team orders. However, the same principles apply where it's not ideal to take out your teammate or compromise your own positions to other drivers. The same principles apply, but there's a bit less tactics in terms of get this person in front for the championship situation.
I mean, not ideal is a bit of an understatement, isn't it? It's always very bad if you do have contact with your teammates. I've found that out the hard way more than a few times in championships I've raced in. Teammates coming together is never a good thing, but the most important factor is moving on together and establishing how you'd go about the situation next time around, and from then on out you can find that it actually helps to galvanise the team and bring you all close together in a strange sort of way. So maybe we will see that. Of course, we are also seeing a good little fight here as Mark Winters, he's up 4 places since the start of the race. Gabriel Stork up 6 places, closing in on that 10th placing class.
Absolutely. We're also looking at new driver Laszlo Berdoni here, closing in on Daniel Nunes. Now, Laszlo will have to work his way back up the order, and to do so he's got a few cars in front of him in Daniel Nunes. Gabriel Stork, he's got a very good run on Daniel Nunes, coming down into the hairpin, late braking up the inside. Nunes does surrender it, wanted a little bit of an undercut there but couldn't get it. A very slick move from Laszlo there to get it into 21st overall and what will be 12th in category, as he now sets his sights on Gabriel Stork. Now let's have a look further up in the AM category. We've got Justin Dune here, he's got James Ebram behind, but Justin Dune will set his sights on the pro driver in front of Alvaro Gutierrez Melendez, helping him along. But James Ebram will be very eager to get back onto the podium. Not only that, but towards the top spot of the podium. He got a win in the AM category at Hockenheim, and you could say that he missed out on it at Spa-Francorchamps. I know we keep alluding to it, but that will probably be on his mind. Try and get his championship bid running still. I mean, he's had a very good season thus far, topping the AM category championship, but he will not want his championship rivals finishing in front of him more and more frequently.
Yeah, and it will certainly stay on his mind if we keep reminding him of the fact that he missed out so unfortunately at Spa through no real fault of his own. He was trying to get crew chief to put in the right amount of fuel, but either it misheard him or something, and that was really the reason for him losing out there, not able to put the right amount of fuel in on his second pit stop, and that really let him down the order, unfortunately. But meanwhile, up the order, we can see this fight. Diego Pereira again in, well, the Impulse Racing meat of the Race Clutch sandwich. And, well, what would you do in Diego Pereira's situation? Would you just try and hold steady here in the middle and weather the storm, or are you going to look to try and get in front and try and focus on the race leader.
Yeah, well, I'm going to guess that he's going to try and go for an undercut on Peter Zuber ahead. He seems to be, unless he's absolutely pushing it, Zuber is just able to pull away ever so slightly. Diego might try and settle in, try and conserve the tyres, try and conserve fuel, because we've seen in all the races so far, fuel has been a big issue for a lot of these drivers with limited capacity in the fuel tanks. Gets you to around about 30 minutes, but if you hit under 30 minutes, you are risking having to do another stop later on in the race. But Diego Pereira might be conscious of that and might be waiting for the cunning undercut on Peter Zuber. Time will tell. We usually see pit stops at around about 30 minutes into the race, so around about a 3-stop strategy is common with these drivers, unless they try and do something a little bit different. We saw a little bit of that last time out of Spa-Francorchamps, people trying to catch people out a little bit. I mean, it was, if we look to the AM category, they were the ones that were experimenting most with the system. Theo Schlerer just sticking to the basics, and he's the one who took the win. So that's something to learn for the drivers coming into this 4th race of the season.
As well to note, though, sorry to cut across, is Theo Schlerer in the slipstream of a car in front, or is he punching a hole in the air? He's punching a hole in the air, so he's not going to be able to save any fuel lifting and coasting with the aid of slipstream. He's going to have to do it all by his lonesome. That could potentially help out this man, Justin Young, who's right behind him, flashing the headlights at James Ebram. But Justin Young, well, he had a great little race at Hockenheim, but he narrowly missed out on the race victory on account of his fuel. He wasn't able to save the fuel, so this is his chance to try and get something back, to try and carry on from his great pace form that he's been showing and save that fuel, manage the race, which has been something that some drivers have lacked. Other drivers have really been able to capitalise on, and I think that is going to be the real key for this race, especially at a circuit, as like you alluded to, isn't the easiest circuit to overtake. No really long drafting zones. It's all about the speed you make up through the corners, and also about all of the fuel you can save going into them.
Absolutely. And we're seeing, actually, you were talking about staying in the slipstream, the big punching a hole in the air. Peter Molnar is getting a hole in the air ahead of him in Diego Pereira, who is still dropping back a little bit from Peter Zuber. But Peter Molnar, he'll be content with this. I mean, Diego Pereira, we mentioned, might be trying to utilise an undercut, but so will this man, Peter Molnar, to try and make it a second consecutive 1, 2, 3, 4 race clutch. That'll be his target right now. We have our series owner, EJ Follner, an instant for him back in the field. Oh, straight off of the Coca-Cola curve. Oh, that was close, just about avoided the wall. Nearly ended up on the Nordschleife there, but he managed to keep it going. Down in 23rd, but he'd be relieved he didn't put that into the wall then. Back to
it is so easy done. Sorry to go across, but it's so easy, doesn't it? When you get onto the grass in iRacing and onto the gravel in iRacing, it doesn't slow you down really. It just sort of lets you slide on through. You don't get dug into the gravel like you would in real life, which I guess in one aspect it's a benefit, but also a curse, because that means you do often find it being a one-way trip to the tyre barriers. But EJ Follner, very good to keep the car going, to keep it out of the wall, and he tried it back on circuit, only losing out on time. Don't think there's been any damage dealt to his car, which is, I guess, the only small comfort that he'll find, but it's a comfort nonetheless.
Absolutely, yes. A bit of a battle going on here for what I believe is 4th place in the AM category. We're looking at Roy Mass, but there just ahead of him is Juanto Avale, but behind Roy Mass, as he goes for a little look on the inside of Avale, behind him he has got Alvaro Fernandez Montes, teammates with Avale, by the way, so he'd be looking to protect him. As on the inside of Montes was Kamal Hashimi there. We've seen Hashimi really rocket up the order since the start of the race. He is now 6th in category, but staring down on the drivers ahead of Roy Mass and Alvaro Fernandez Montes. And Hashimi has been one of the drivers we've seen who's really been able to contend with the top runners in the field. He's got the pace, but the results just haven't really backed that up so far this season for Hashimi. But let's see if today fares better. Up 3 places so far from the start, but Roy Mass and Fernandez ahead. Both have gained 7 places. As to the inside goes Hashimi. Brave move, and it caught but Fernandez by surprise as he tries the undercut. Hashimi got on the power a little bit too early there and wasn't able to cover the inside, but they're going to the Schumacher S. Hashimi will lead going through the corner, but maybe the run from Fernandez might be able to bear down on his rear. Going into the left-hander here. No, he isn't. It's a difficult corner to overtake on. You don't want to run too wide there, risking the off-track 1X, synonymous with iRacing. But Hashimi, brave move to the inside there. And in fact, let's get a little replay of that, because that was a stunning pass. Slipstream coming out of the forward curve into the hairpin. Oh, there was nearly contact there. They were very close. But well executed move in the end from Hashimi. I mean, it would have been a terribly executed move if he made contact with him, but because he didn't, great job.
Yeah, great job indeed. So, I mean, it's a difference though, isn't it, between saying, oh, that was a silly move down the inside, and us saying, oh, what a brilliant move that was late into the Dunlop curve. Thin margins, but these drivers, they try and find the limits, and I think we just saw a little bit of the limits there from Kamal Hashimi, really testing Alvaro Fernandez Montes' awareness into a Dunlop curve, but it seemingly worked out. And now, are we seeing these drivers close into one another? Not really. This is again a cagey fight we see between Diego Perina and the 2 race clutch cars, one in front, one behind, keeping instead with each other, but all of this is allowing Benson Mathy up at the front of the field to clear a gap. Margin now about 3 seconds compared to Peter Zuber, who is in 2nd place. But is that just the fact that Benson Mathy isn't managing his race? It's just going full flat out and trying a different strategy to the rest?
Potentially, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll find out. 12 minutes around about until the pit stops come up. I mean, he must be comfortable with the amount of exhaustion he's putting on his miles to the gallon, or miles to the litres, whichever your measurement system is, as he sets a 41.2. So he's consistently quicker than the drivers behind by a couple of tenths. As they all bunch up a little bit, well, as they bunch up a little bit, they'll be very much focused on each other rather than their lap times. So we see Perina try and reel in Zuber. They're all within a second to half a second of one another, and there'll be one eye on the racing line ahead of them, one eye on their virtual mirrors above them. And Perina, much slower than Zuber in the Mercedes arena there, has broken away by a couple of tenths on that section there. Maybe it is just a difference in setups. I mean, the Mercedes arena a lot narrower, so you have to have a car that can lean to the sides and get around the corners a little bit quicker, whereas you've got the rest of the circuit here that's very much quick turn in and not so much rolling on the anti-roll bar and the chassis and the suspension. And that might be where Perina is best suited. So we see him come through the Schumacher S now, taking plenty of the inside curb there. Now Peter Molnar closes in to within half a second of the Portuguese driver Perina. Taking all the roads, quick switch over to the left-hand side of the circuit. But a little bit about the LMP2s. They're becoming very popular on iRacing. Very good car. I mean, I drove one in the just gone by the Watkins Glen 6 hours official endurance race on iRacing. Our team didn't do very well, unfortunately, but very good cars, aren't they, Ed? A huge amount of grip and very popular nowadays, probably because you can throw them around a little bit.
Yeah, I will admit the last time I drove an LMP2 car properly at anger was actually in preparation for the Daytona's 24 Hours. That was when I wasn't sure which car I wanted to take part in, be it the LMP2 or the GT3. In the end, I settled on the GT3 to good effect because me and my team ended up winning our split, but enough about that and more about the LMP2 car. And that was a great fun as well, driving that car. I think the main reason why I didn't end up racing in it was because I couldn't convince my teammates to actually go ahead and buy the damn thing. It was so fun sending it into the bus stop curve. You have so much grip and downforce to really lean on, and as well when you're coming into the infield section, that first corner at Daytona, you need to be extra careful on the brakes. No ABS. You've got a little bit of traction control to help you on the exit, but I find that when you use the traction control of this car, it actually seemingly kicks in, makes the rear of the car step out more than it does to bring everything back in line. So you need to have a very deft foot in the car.
I agree. I actually 100% agree. And a track like Watkins Glen, a little bit similar to this one. It's quite a lot of ascents and descents in terms of elevation changes, narrow, twisty corners. I'd say Watkins Glen's a bit of a faster track, so you might find on these cars today they'll be equipping high downforce setups, but we're going to go back to the fuel saving thing. You'll probably find with high downforce setups where the rear wing is lifted more and therefore drags the car down a little bit more, that will probably use a lot more fuel if you're running a higher downforce setup. So drivers would, we would assume drivers will probably test that beforehand, but that might catch out a few today. We'll have to see. And these drivers still, they keep closing in together, then drifting apart. There's no real move made by these drivers. I think they'll be conscious that if they start battling, they'll lose time from the drivers ahead, and the driver ahead to note for these drivers is Benson and Methy, so they'll be conscious of that and perhaps waiting for the pit stops to gain that valuable time and the positions. Drives around them. Let's take a little look at the AM category again. We've got James Ebram versus Justin Young still, but Young has dropped back from James Ebram. So a little bit of time lost. It might have been an instant further back. I can't see anything on the events list, so it might be that James Ebram saving a bit of fuel earlier on in the stint. Now he's put his foot down to try and gain, get time away from Justin June and gain time on Theo Schlerer.
I'm having a little look. Sorry, at the times being set by these two, and Justin Young is about. Let's have a look. Last lap, he was about 4/10 slower than James Ebram. So I think James has just really, like you mentioned, been able to put the foot down and keep his pace nice and high. Having a look at other lap times across the board, where we can see there, Benson and Matthew has set the fastest lap of the race so far, and that was actually set last time by with a 41.228. Very quick lap time indeed. A couple of tenths quicker than Peter Zuber. So that gap is certainly slowly but surely increasing as again he sets another fastest lap, so the pace is really picking up from Benson and Mathy, probably in preparation for the pit stops. The fuel is coming out, the tyres getting a little bit worn, but not worn too much they need to worry about changing them just yet. Depending on the track temperature, we usually see the drivers take the tyres on the second stop at the midway point of the race, which could be another aspect to go in this race. Maybe some of the drivers behind, Peter Zuber, Diego Pereira, and Peter Molnar, they're going a little bit slower and, most importantly, looking after their tyres while doing so, and maybe planning on keeping those tyres for the whole 2 hours.
That's an interesting point, actually. Yes, yeah. The dilemma of the Watkins Glen 6 hours of keeping tyres.
So many things at play.
There's so many things to think about. But Benson Matthew, whatever he is doing or wherever he is playing with this strategy, so far so good. I mean, setting the fastest time of the session. I mean, he's the only one that's. Let's just bring up the best times again. I mean, more than 2/10 quicker than anyone. His nearest rival in terms of times is Diego Pereira, and he's got a draft. Just remember that. So that might be helping along. So Benson Matthew, yep. Job well done so far, but let's see if he can save the fuel. He's putting a lot of beans into that car right now. Let's see if the beans will last to the end as he comes through the chicane. Stays out with 5 minutes to go until what we call is the pit stop milestone, the 30-minute marker. As soon as you get over the 30 minutes and then you come into the pits after that, to us commentators, myself and Ed May, that's a thumbs up. Oh, as he goes quicker again. He has really got his foot down, and the other drivers behind, they also are putting their foot down. They're doing personal bests. But, yeah, they are. Peter Zuber did a better time, but it might have been invalidated. Peter Molnar has gone quicker. He's in the
track, through the chicane.
Ah, there we go. Yep, so it wouldn't count, but he's still able to do such a quick time as Benson Matthew gets very, very close to the 1 minute 40s, which is incredible to see. Peter Molnar has joined him in the 41.1, so they're all getting a bit quicker as the tyres warm up and the tanks get a little bit empty, therefore less weight in the car will help you along. But these tyres do last quite a long time on these cars. You can usually make the rears last quite a long time, more than an hour at least, and the fronts, well, it just depends on the setup you have and the driving style you had. They can last quite a long time as well.
You know, the thing about this circuit is that it kind of uses all of the tyres fairly equally. You'd expect maybe it'd be the outside left tyres that get used a lot, but then coming through the Mercedes arena, use the right-hand side tyres a lot. And as well, the first part, the Schumacher S, really leans on that right-hand front, and then as well into the chicane at the end of the lap. So the front tyres, they tend to get worn fairly equally, rears, like you said, don't tend to get used as much, so we'll expect to see drivers thinking about maybe only taking fronts or not taking tyres at all. Does, like you say, all depend on what they do at this crucial early stage of the race, and are the drivers able to keep it going for another lap? I think Benson Mathy does. All of the drivers even can keep it going, as Benson Mathy now dips into the 1 minute 40s, a 1 minute 40.874. Seriously quick times now being set by the race clutch driver, as Peter Zuber sets his personal best, but again, it's not enough to match Benson Mathy. Gaps are increasing though between Zuber and Perina, even if the slipstream is trying to bring everything closer together. Lap times are certainly moving anything but, as Schlerer he's set a personal best of the race and the fastest lap in the AM category as well for virtual best racing. What is his gap to James Ebram? Have a look here. I think it is just over 8 seconds potentially.
Just under
quite
10,
a long
yeah.
gap. Yeah, about 10 seconds there. So big margins in the AM class already. We know that Schlerer, he's very good at managing his fuel. That was the reason why he won last time out at Spa, was that all-important race management. And he looks to be on for a similar performance here.
Absolutely. And is he joined by a virtual best car just behind? No, he's not. That's an Apex Tech car. A lot of orange cars in the field. But yeah, a stellar performance last time out at Spa-Francorchamps. He just got the better of everyone on strategies and on race pace. So yeah, so far so good for Theo Schlerer. The time between him and James Ebram on this lap seems to be stabilising quite a bit. We do have drivers in the pits. I think Kamal Hashimi is in the pits. Are we able to skip over to him?
I don't think Kamal Hashimi is in the pits. I think what is happening is he's having internet issues. You can see him popping in and out of 5th place, and that's behind Alvaro Fernandez. So, well, that's actually no, just in front of Alvaro Fernandez. Actually, we saw that move being made, didn't we, into the Dunlop curve, and he's trying to set his sights on Romain Mars, now ahead by about half a second. Follow this stage from racing driver. It seems that the blipping has stopped momentarily, at least, for Kamal Hashimi, as we do see a driver into the pit lane now properly on circuit, and that is Jamie Conway for Apex Tech Racing. One of the few drivers, in fact, I think the only driver to pit in before the half-hour mark. So that could be a real detriment to his race, but everyone else has been able to make the fuel last much better than they were able to at Spa.
Yeah, and it could be to do with them not being able to hit tops, as high a speed here as they could at Spa-Francorchamps, as Jamie Conway leaves the pits rather quickly. So that was just a splash and dash of fuel, no tyres taken on board. But yeah, pitting before the 30-minute marker. The only driver who has done that, if my eyes don't deceive me, was Jamie Conway. So we'll make assumptions that his strategy isn't quite on point right now, but you know, a lot of time to go. As we hit over the 30-minute marker, we look to Benson Mathy, who will make his way towards the Schumacher S now. We will see drivers coming into the pits at the end of this lap, so we'll cover it as much as we can as Benson Mathy makes the dive into the pits. And sorry, he wasn't at the Schumacher S, he was at the other chicane. So he comes into the pits. Who else will be coming in? Peter Zuber is in the pits. Peter Molnar stays out, so he's able to save a bit more fuel. Again, that big hole punched in the air ahead of him from Zuber and Perina. But it is the front three who come in first. Also in the pit lane is Chris Barrett. Let's see if... Oh, there's a spin in the pits. Is that Drew Lloyd? No, that's not. There is a car that's spun in the pits back there.
That is James Ebram.
Oh, James Ebram is... No, it's not. It's not. There's someone else.
Who is that? There's a mystery man. Mystery Apex Tech car. Could that be EJ Fjellner?
Car 113. Yes,
EJ
it was
Fjellner.
EJ. Oh, yeah. There we go. So EJ Fjellner doing a Valtteri Bottas, spinning in the pit lane, but he didn't have many cars around him, so thankfully he wasn't able to collect anyone. Meanwhile, the cars that are going by, staying out on track. Peter Molnar, Alvaro Gutierrez, Melendez, Quanto Avale, both of Idrian Motorsport, as is Alvaro Fernandez. Sorry, Alvaro Gutierrez was the first driver, Fernandez the second. So as Benson Amethi leaves the pits, stays out in front of Peter Zuber, and Diego Pereira, that was a significantly longer stop from him. So let's take a look at the pit times on our dash here. So Pereira actually had a quicker stop. Pit lane time we'll take a look at. Okay, I'm a bit confused. So somehow he's fallen behind Peter Zuber quite a lot, has Pereira. Is there something you reckon we've missed, Ed?
I'm not sure. I'm having a look here and seeing it. I don't think so. Maybe it was just the little marginal gains and losses you can make on the run into the pits. Maybe as well on pit exit. There is a little bit of time to be found. And maybe, you know, that adds up. Maybe it was a case of Diego Pereira not getting the best run in and not getting the best run out of the pits, and maybe it was just a very good run out of the pits from Peter Zuber. As we see Peter Molnar now coming into the pits for his first stop. Was able to save the fuel a little bit, wasn't he able to keep it in for good stead. Means that his final stop, should he be able to have repeat performances, that will be much shorter than those around him. Benson Amethi then will come around the final corner, Coca-Cola curve, and take back what was his into the lead of the races. Peter Molnar gets the car up and running. Peter Zuber will blitz by him on the run into the first corner. And now where is Pereira? Well, Pereira just about behind, not able to close in. So both of the race clutch cars getting the jump are getting a big margin ahead of Diego Pereira Impulse Racing car. Not seemingly strong in the pit lane, but again, race clutch. They just ace it with a strategy, ace it on the pit stops, and now it's a 1, 2, 3.
Ah, they're brilliant, aren't they? The hungry Hungarians have done it again. They're into the top 3, a slightly different order to that of Spa-Francorchamps. But Peter Molnar executed the undercut on Diego Pereira very, very well. Now, the one thing I did notice with my first outing in the LMP2 cars for a very long time anyway, is that the tyres do take quite a while to warm up on these cars, around about 2 laps before they become optimal. And Peter Molnar has one less lap that he's run on these tyres than Pereira, so we might see Pereira close in on Molnar throughout this lap if he can get a good lap in here. He's got the slipstream ahead of Molnar, which Molnar's been running with for most of the race until now. Peter Zuber a little bit further up the road, so that hole in the air less effective. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the AM category, see how they've got on in the pits. Well, Theo Schlery still leads the way in front of all the AM category drivers. 7th place overall with James Ebram, 10th overall, but second in category, still in second place. Just ahead of Justin Jr., who has gained on him a little bit since the last time we looked at these two drivers. And in fact, this is looking like a very good lap from Justin Jr. indeed. The small time we've been watching, it seems like he's closing in on the driver ahead. Let's just keep an eye on the interval gap between these two drivers. Less than a second between them as we come into the chicane. I do love watching these LMP2 cars go through the faster alternative chicane at the Nürburgring here. Less speed scrubbed off. It means they can just fly through that corner, hopping along the curbs. We come across the line now, Justin June. A much quicker lap time, half a second quicker than James Ebram that time by. Coming to the Mercedes arena now. Let's get on board with Justin June just to see his perspective. Car ahead. Common cam there now to the cockpit cam.
He's in first gear, that's surprising actually to see him come out of that section of first gear. Usually you'd want a little bit of a lower gear to mitigate that wheel spin, but it seems Justin Young is a deft enough foot that he doesn't need that extra aid. He can just keep it going, powering out of the corner nicely. Has lost a little bit of time though to James Ebram in this first sector, so maybe that was the difference maker, and now his car is better set up for the straights. Could be a sign of different strategies, of course. Again, James Ebram very strong though on the tight twisty bits. on this onboard. Look at that going through the Schumacher S. It's brilliant in any car, even more so in cars. Plenty of downforce that you can lean on and absolutely blitz it up the hill. We get a nice cut through the, I think that is the, I'm trying to remember now, I think that's the Michelin curve. There's the one going into Van Bogen. James Ebron, we come on board with. Let's have an onboard, shall we, of them going through the chicane, the Wex style, the GT chicane. Cutting it nicely, not too much. Brilliant onboard, wasn't that, from James Ebron? Oh, excellent stuff there. Really powering out the curve. His inputs were fairly smooth there, as well as slight correction on the exit onto the straight to keep it nice and balanced. But other than that, James Ebron has been really able to extend his margin on this last flying lap.
Yeah, pretty good lap from James Ebron there. Let's compare the last times between the two drivers. Seems to be one of the closest battles on the track. Last lap, well, nearly a second apart. James Ebron setting a 42.4. Justin June losing a bit of time from his previous lap, and therefore a second from James Ebron, so he'll have to hook up a better lap. I am a little bit surprised to see a lot of these drivers, well, these two anyway, running first gear for a lot of these corners. I would have thought that a lot of these corners would be second gear corners, but they must know something about these cars that I don't. Yeah, a little bit surprised to see. I mean, the drivers will probably have the option to run in a higher gear to try and save fuel, because the RPM will be lower on the cars. But we look to third and fourth, closer than what they were when they came out of the pits. Arena closed in on Peter Molnar, who's gained 2 places in this race. Not quite the qualifying session that he would have wanted, the winner at Spa-Francorchamps 3 weeks ago. But he's back into the top 3, and he'll have a big smile on his face if he can keep it there. The last lap completed by those drivers. Molnar a little bit quicker, it seems, on the lap times than Perarina. Perarina is doing very, very well in this Mercedes Arena, closing in on Molnar visibly through this section. The thing is, with these drivers at the top, they're at their absolute maximum capability through these corners to try and get out the better of the other drivers around them, and because they're absolutely top of the game when it comes to I-rating and potential, etc, etc, it's very difficult to get the better of each other, because they're maximizing everything they can from these cars. And on a track like this, very, very difficult to close in and overtake. It's all got to be done in the corners, as we mentioned towards the beginning of the live stream here. And this part of the track is definitely Molnar's part of the track. Stretching away a little bit from Diego there. As we see him come through the third of the track. Perarina using all the track and more. A little bit of gravel puffing up behind his rear tyres there. To come into the chicane, they're quite close again. Perarina's getting a very good draft along the back straight there. Granted, it's quite a short straight compared to other tracks we've been on, but he gains considerably on Molnar as he runs a little bit wide coming out the Coca-Cola curve. Let's get on board, coming down the straight, see if he's able to gain on Molnar. No, not quite. Let's stay on board for this lap to see where the gains and where the losses are. Late braking going into turn 1, gains right up towards the rear of Molnar's car ahead. Coming into turn 2, later entry into the corner from Perarina. Molnar might be conscious of defending that. A big step out. Big step out of the rear there in the dirty air. Just about hanging on to it. First gear through these corners up to second. Short shift up to second for that fourth turn. And you see Molnar stretch away at the exit of the arena there. Coming into the fourth curve now. Rear end really stepping out on that. Now my instinct's telling, well, it's not my instinct, my telling is telling me that Perarina's running quite a low downforce setup on that car. He's, yeah, the rear end is really stepping out
to get it out of the corner.
Yeah,
really struggling there.
There's a little bit of understeer there as well. And then, as I said a lap ago, this is where Molnar stretches away from Perarina, but this is the part of the track, and the low downforce will be telling here. This is where Perarina will gain on the driver ahead. Let's see how much he does gain down this back straight here. Look how quick he's going through the gearbox. not very long straight on this track, so you need to get to 6th gear rather quickly. Going into the chicane here. Oh, I love watching them go through there. It's a bit of a stalemate at the moment between these two drivers, but that was a lap on board with Diego Pereira there, and a very enjoyable lap indeed at the Nürburgring. It's a lap that just seems to fly by, but 1 minute 40, it's quite a long lap at the same time. In any car, 1 minute 40 is considered a long lap. Shortest on the calendar so far, though. As we see them go through turn 1 again, Pereira closed up again. Now let's see what else is going on the track before anything kicks off between these two. We have got Theo Schlede battling with Drew Lloyd behind. Drew Lloyd, we haven't mentioned much today. And the number 8 car took a bit of a lunge to the inside. It might have been too late at braking there, and just about avoided the Frenchman who's leading the AM category. Drew Lloyd, how to avoid that. We're up to him in the number 8 car there. Meanwhile, further up the grid, Apex Tech Racing drivers, that's Chris Barrett in the number 5 car, just ahead of his teammate Jamie Conway. They're out on their own, having a little battle there between themselves, but not costing each other too much time as they're staying nose to tail at the moment. Jamie Conway has been behind Chris Barrett for much of the race so far. To see if this is the tactic to just bring home the points ahead of their rivals. I mean, their rivals are Race Clutch. They're getting a lot more points than them as it stands, but bringing the cars home is of the importance. We saw, I know this isn't rallying, but we saw the Safari Rally this weekend in Kenya from the WRC, and there are a lot of cases where drivers were pushing a little bit too hard and not able to get it to the end. I mean, it's Safari, not the Nürburgring, but a lot of teams finishing to the most importance, and that's probably what Apex Tech are doing right here, right now.
Yeah, definitely. But another thing I've noticed as we come up to, well, the halfway point of this, their second stint in the car, coming up to their second pit stop, the temperature hasn't really gone down on the circuit, has it? I think it started off at 30 degrees. I had a little glance over it, and I think it's only dropped down to about 28 to 29. So still a very hot circuit. You can see it there. Ambient air temperature 18 degrees, but the on-track temperature, the one that really matters, isn't coming down at all. So the drivers are really going to start to struggle maybe later on as the race progresses with their tyre life. And I'll be amazed to see any drivers not taking tyres at the midway point.
Yeah, we saw a lot of them take on tyres at the second pit stop last time out at Spa. It was a lot hotter conditions at Spa, as we see Chris Barrett get out of shape a little bit coming out of the Ford curve. Does that enable Jamie Conway to make a move? They are teammates, so he isn't going to go for it this time round. And the two just staying nose to tail for the time being. But yeah, track temperature, quite important. The drivers not seeing it elevate does change strategies. It does make them think about that. Switch to the front. A bit of a sit rep of the order so far. Out in front at the moment for Race Clutch Racing is Ben Stamethey. It's been a brilliant lights to present race so far from him. Peter Zuber in second place. He came second place at Spa-Francorchamps and Virginia International Raceway. And he's second again here today so far. Peter Molnar in third, just ahead of Diego Pereira in fourth place for Impulse Racing. Chris Barrett is in third. He is just ahead of his teammate Jamie Conway. Leader of the AM category, Theo Schlede, is in seventh place, battling with Pro category driver, seventh category, eighth overall, Drew Lloyd. James Ebram is second in category at the moment, and he is just ahead of Alvaro Gutierrez Melendez, rounding out the top 10 overall. 4 places gained for him so far. Justin Dung in 11th place, trying to catch back up with James Ebram. He's closed up every now and again and then dropped the gap, but he's third in category at the moment. Juanto Avale in 12th position, dropped 4 places from the start, so not the ideal race for him so far, but he's still 9th in category, 12th overall. Roy Mass in 13th overall, 4th in category. Had a couple of good races this season, been very, very consistent. And I suppose he'll be a bit of an unhappy chap right now, the Dutchman, as, well, not to ruin it for anyone. The Euros are going on at the moment. Roy might not be happy about that right now. Spoilers alert, spoilers alert. Alvaro Fernandez Montes, 14th and 5th in category. up 7 places. Him and Roy Mass are the biggest gainers overall at the moment in this race. Kamal Hashimi in 6th place, trying to catch back up with the top 5 here. 6th in category, 15th overall. New driver today, Laszlo Burdeny in 16th position. He had a bit of an instant further back in the race, but he's trying to make his way back through the order. Andy Spicer, 5 places gained. 17th overall at the moment in the 124 car of Apex Tech Racing. Carlos Ponce in 18th place, and he's battling quite intensely with the green machine behind of Mark Winters in 19th place. 4 places gained for him so far, as has Daniel Nunes. He has gained 14 places. The ENCC racing car. Jonas Hanschel in 21st place at T3 Esports. The German on home turf today, putting in a good shift. He's in 21st at the moment. Alexander Rogenbuch, he had a bit of drama earlier on in the race. I believe he's a few laps down, but he is 22nd at the moment. Hans Blankart in 23rd. And we have EJ Follner, who's having a bit of a dramatic drive at the moment. There's been a few instances here and there. We saw him go off of the Coca-Cola curve earlier on. He's in 24th. Gabriel Stork is in 25th. Now, is he a retiree? He might be, as is Rodrigo Lizowiski and Felipe Riquelme. So Felipe Riquelme, unfortunately, having a bad race here. He's been doing great all season, but today hasn't quite gone his way. Your leader of this race at the moment, Benson Amethi, and the gap to the cars behind his teammate Peter Zuber is 4.5 seconds down the road. So he's not out of the woods yet, but he's certainly doing a great job of it at the moment. Peter Zuber, who has stretched away from his teammate, who is holding up Diego Pereira at the moment, and they do keep getting close together and drifting apart. It is very close between these two drivers, and we're about 12 minutes away from the next set of pit stops, and this whole stint so far for them two has been very, very intense indeed. We'll see how that persists as time goes by. James Ebram has got himself up 1 overall place since the last time we looked, and it was a pass on Alvaro Gutierrez Melendez. Just takes to the inside. Melendez didn't get away very well coming out of turn 1 there. Round the outside goes James Ebram, and Melendez just let him by in the end. I wonder if there might not have been a slowdown. He might have just thought, yeah, I'll let him go. I'm not battling him. Just let him go.
I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, they've got their own races to run, different strategies at play, different classes as well. And there's no real need to run your race into any danger by having to defend from a car that isn't going to affect your point scoring at the end. If, say, James Ebram was up behind, but as for argument's sake, say Juan Serval, 9th place in the pro class, was right behind him, then maybe you could argue a case for defending it. But although he made the smart play there, but just by letting him through and getting on with his own race, and as well, and obviously the draft is well on been and gone. If he was able to stay close, that would have helped him out no end with saving fuel. As we come into, again, the 10 minutes until we expect to see drivers coming in for their second pit stop at the midway point of this race. And we're seeing things start to unfold a bit with some of the battles. We're seeing Mark Winters, I think, who was able to close in to Carlos Ponce. In fact, actually, I think Carlos Ponce actually managed to get ahead of Mark Winters on the last couple of laps by, I think. So maybe Mark Winters looking for a bit of a move back. We haven't actually seen too much of this digital downforce racing car across the season. It's been involved in incidents here, there and everywhere, and not necessarily finished every single race. So good to give a little bit of screen time to some of the other lesser seen cars, and if they're in a battle, why not let them shine?
Absolutely. As we see him coming out of the hairpin there, we're coming to the Schumacher S here. We'll be looking to get by Carlos Ponce for the top 8 in the AM category. Into the Michelin curve here. Taking a lot more of that inside curve, which will certainly help him out. Maybe there is a case here if Mark Winters is better on this section of the track, but there are cars that seem to be very well suited to the Mercedes arena, which is the majority of Sector 1. To sit here, really maxing out the revs there, getting a little bit of a tow from the car ahead to the Coca-Cola curve now. if it hit the curb on the inside there. It did give way on the rear a little bit as he hit that. We'll catch up with these two very shortly. Andy Spicer just ahead of these two drivers, has just set a personal best lap time in 7th place there, so I imagine Spicer will have his eyes set on trying to catch the car ahead in 16th overall of Laszlo Berdeny. Berdeny is quite a long way ahead, quite a few corners ahead, so quite a mission to catch up with Laszlo, but plenty of the race to go. We are nearing the halfway point in this race. We'll start to see pit stops in around about 9 minutes time, and the one driver I am keen to keep an eye on for pit stops is Jamie Conway, as he was the first to come into the pits, and he was the only driver who came into the pits before the 30-minute marker, which we allude to so often as it is quite an important milestone we're seeing in this championship. If you go into the pits underneath that, it means you are risking having to save fuel, or run out of fuel even, towards the end of the race. Jamie Conway getting a little bit of a draft ahead, which he didn't really have in the first stint of the race. He's getting a draft from his teammate Chris Barrett, so that might be helping him out. That might get him over that 1 hour marker. We'll see a bit further on into the race.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly something to keep your eyes open, though, is for Jamie Conway. Like you said, the driver pitted on lap 17, a lap before the majority of the field came in, but it was only just, we had it at the just before the 30-minute mark, as he was coming out of the pits. I think it was just about 10 seconds before we came up to that magical half-hour point. So with the tyres as well being changed, that adds an extra 30 seconds to your overall race time stationary. Might allow him to claw back into the picture if he's able to extend this stint back out to the expected length of around about 18 laps on one tank of fuel. Half an hour, that's all the same. As we watch now, a little bit of a battle emerging between Drew Lloyd and Theo Schlerer. And well, he has got a bit of a gap building between himself and James Ebram again. 10 seconds the large between first and second in that class. But we have a replay that's coming out of the Schumacher S's of Drew Lloyd. That was actually Drew Lloyd passing Theo Schlerer. And was that a bit of a slowdown, or was that just Theo thinking about letting him by? Because he did seem extremely slow coming out of the Schumacher S's.
Yeah, I can't quite work out what actually happened to Theo Schlerer. Oh, sorry, we will watch it again.
A bit of a strange area as well to sort of loopy down on power, so I think that must have been a slowdown that you had to take just before the Michelin curve there. Although if you had a slowdown, I'd probably think about maybe clearing it into the chicane at the end of the lap, but maybe it just came up on a little bit too quick. I think you can pick up slowdowns in the Mercedes arena at the sort of final part of that complex when you come up on the right-hander there into Vereling curves, so maybe that was where it was picked up and it was carried all the way through and then had to be quickly cleared before he suffered a drive-through penalty. But that hasn't really hampered his prospects too much at the front of the field, at the front of the AM class, because he's still 10 seconds to the good on James Ebram.
Absolutely, and now they're both in consecutive positions overall. Means James Ebram can set his sights on Theo Schlerer, and in fact I think he might have gained on him a little bit throughout this stint. Let's just take a look at the gap between the two drivers. Wow,
he did gain on the last lap over a second and a half by James Ebram. Sorry to cut across, but James Ebram really started to pick up the pace, but also benefiting from Theo Schlerer, who had a very slow lap last time by a 1 minute 43.67 compared to James Ebram's 1 minute 42. So we are seeing a little bit of a difference here in terms of the speed differential, but I think that was just a little blip on the radar for Theo Schlerer, and he's going to seek at least to pick the pace back up once more.
Absolutely. Now, the thing is with James Ebram and Schlerer, they were 10 seconds apart before the first pit stop. Oh, we've got to look to something as Peter Zuber. Oh, what's going on there?
Ooh.
Well, Perarino's gone wide. Something happened to Zuber. He dropped a place to Molnar, and then Perarino looked like he was held up almost by Zuber. We checked the replay now, but that was very strange indeed. Right, let's take a look at it. So Peter Molnar has passed Peter Zuber. Here is Molnar here. Peter Zuber, gone wide there. Right, okay, let's take another look at that.
what must have happened? Yeah, he locks the brakes up. He gets a slide on, locks the brakes to keep the car pointing in the right direction, and then seemingly comes to the way. This is the confusion that happens between himself and Perina. Perina sees a chance to go for a move, looks to the inside. It gets covered off a little bit, half covered off. That kind of puts the willies up Diego Perina, doesn't he? Scares him a little bit, sends him outside off of the road. Maybe a little bit of miscommunication, but I'm certain that will be something for the stewards to look at after the race, because Perina really does lose out there and had a chance to get up into the podium places.
Mean and nasty stewards will be coming out in this race. Maybe I was once one to be it again. But Peter Zuber now in third place. Peter Molnar has stretched in front. It was the mistake from Zuber that's dropped into this, a half spin. And Perina got the worst of it, it seems. He has dropped back a fair bit from the car ahead that is now Zuber. And Peter Molnar has stretched away. But let's look at the gaps between them. 1.5 seconds between all of them as we approach the pit stops. And we saw Peter Molnar get the better of Perina in the pit stop last time by. There's nothing suggesting he'll do it this time. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But drama in the top 4 for the pro category. But all this is allowing Benson Amethi to stretch away. He is out in front by... Yes. Oh, okay. 8 seconds from Peter Molnar. I was just thinking he's not 16 seconds. He is 8 seconds out in front, and he has stretched that lead throughout this stint. Now comes the time where we've got to keep an eye on drivers for pit stops. And we might see, as we alluded to earlier, Jamie Conway coming in a little earlier, so we'll keep a little focus on him. He might have saved fuel throughout this stint, as he's been close to Chris Barrett. But let's take a look to Benson Amethi. What will he do here? Stays out at the moment, so he'll stretch over the 1 hour marker, a very crucial milestone to hit. And this will be the point in the race where we'll have to keep an eye on drivers to see if they take on tyres in this next pit stop. At the moment, Benson Amethi seems pretty quick on the tyres he's on. If we compare his last time to his best time, he has lost about half a second from his personal best, but it still seems that those tyres are going okay on the Dallara underneath Amethi.
Yeah, but you do come to the point where you see the tyres, they hit a bit of a cliff, and your performance really does almost fall away. That's why they call it the cliff, of course. But Chris Barrett, good for him to keep it going, keep it out a little while longer. We were expecting him maybe to come into the pits a little bit earlier. He did come into the pits just before the half-hour mark last time by, but he's going to comfortably make it this time around, so he's able to get his strategy back on track. And that means that we shouldn't expect to see any drivers, hopefully, making any splash and dash pit stops. So now it's going to be a good, clean fight till the end, and maybe all about who's going to make their last pit stop as short as they can by having all of that fuel in hand and extending their stints. Now, it's not about extending to make the race work, it's about extending to make the gains at the end, and that could really come to effect. I mean, the final half hour will be really frenetic and fast and exciting to watch as well. Benson Amethi rounding out of the Van Bogen as Diego Perina. Has he been able to catch back up again to Zuber? His last lap time was a couple tenths faster, so putting some pace on. Benson Amethi extends his stint for an extra lap. Does Peter Molnar do the same? Yes, he does. And I think Peter Zuber and Diego Perina all carry on, so they're extending their stints past the hour mark. Means their final stops will be shorter, but of course, if they're all doing the same strategy, no one's really going to gain.
Oh, and the one driver who does nip in the pits, and is the driver who came in before anyone else. It was a very, very edgy entrance to the pit lane there. But Jamie Conway comes in before everyone yet again. But the crucial thing is he's over that 1 hour marker, and everyone has done that today so far, which is good for everyone. It means that they are on course for the good strategy that is 3 stops. For Jamie Conway, first of them. But whether he's first, it doesn't really matter as he enters his pit stall. Now I'm going to stick with Jamie Conway. Just see if he takes on any tyres in this stop. See the car in the stall at the moment. will it jack up to take on tyres? You cannot fill the car with fuel and change tyres at the same time. IMSA rules and GT rules are different to that of Formula 1 and IndyCar, etc, etc, but the car does jack up. So Jamie Conway is taking on tyres, which does suggest that other drivers might also do the same. So Jamie Conway will leave the pits very shortly.
I was going to say, that could be crucial to watch these drivers make their way into the pits. Benson Mathy comes on in. Is he going to take tyres? That's the crucial factor. He's got the margin out the front. He's got about 8 seconds to Peter Molnar in the background. That means if he does opt to take tyres, he won't have as much time to try and make up. And with better tyres and as well as superior pace that he's been showing all race, you'd expect him to be able to make the game. So it could be a safer strategy to opt for the tyres. Peter Molnar, though, and Peter Zuber stay out. So now the focus shifts to Benson Mathy and Diogo Pereira for Impulse Racing. Benson Mathy takes the fuel on board. You can see him. I think he's going to be in the pit stall very close to Diogo Pereira here, so we might be able to see both of them together. Yes, we can. Does Benson Mathy opt for tyres, or does he go as soon as the fuel is put in? He's able to get the car rolling. Can't see the car going up on the jacks. The last little bit of fuel is coming in, and up on the jacks he goes. And the tyres spin, but I don't think he's putting any input in. I think that is just...
I'll tell you what he's doing, Ed. He's trying to burn fuel. That's what he's trying to do. Now, they've made it to the hour marker, which means... I was going to allude to this point right after you finished there, but it means that these drivers, rather than trying to get to the end and trying to save fuel, which we've seen in most of the races so far, what they're trying to do here is take on as little fuel as possible. So the drivers that have stayed out at the moment, Peter Molnar and Peter Zuber, on the final stop of the race, it's looking likely that they'll need less fuel and therefore a shorter pit stop. And we'll have an emptier tank for maybe this and the last stint.
But then if they're trying to burn fuel in the pit lane, why would they just not put less fuel in to begin with?
Because they can make it to that hour and a half marker regardless. So
but then they'd make the pit stop shorter. That was my question.
Wow.
That was my thinking. They'd be able to make their pit stop shorter, having less fuel, unless... I don't know what they're thinking is, but it's a little trick in iRacing that we're not aware of. Maybe it warms up the tyres somehow, or some magical iRacing feature that we're not aware of. Don't call them bugs, call them features.
Yeah, We'll have to find out. I'm sure we'll find out with the post-race interviews later on. We had plenty of interviews after Spa-Francorchamps last week, one of the best races of the season, so plenty of drivers wanted to tell their tale. So do stick around after the race to hear them. Our interviews conducted by Ed May, our interview specialist, as we see Peter Zuber enter the pit bay now. And also in the pits is Drew Lloyd and Theo Schlerer, leader of the AM category, quite crucially. Now, James Ebram has been in the pits already. So Theo Schlerer, despite running out in front, saving quite a bit more fuel. Peter Molnar comes round that bottom end of the circuit while Peter Zuber is in the pits still. Taking on tyres now. This is going to be interesting as Juanto Avale stays out, as does Alvaro Gutierrez Melendez. But Benson Mathy passes by. And passes Peter Zuber rather convincingly. Zuber still in the pits there now to keep an eye on Diogo Pereira here. He's coming down the back straight here. Could this be close? It could be. He's gained quite a bit. He won't get in front before the Mercedes arena, but he has gained quite a bit on Peter Zuber throughout that pit stop phase there. The only driver we're waiting on now is Peter Molnar, who surely will be entering the pits now. Yes, he does. So we'll come back to Peter Molnar very shortly. But all drivers, it's safe to say, taking on tyres in the pits at the moment.
Another thing is that this is the undercut. I was looking to see where Diogo Pereira was going to be, because Peter Zuber wasn't able to capitalise on the undercut, took the pit stop a little bit later, but he's going to breathe a sigh of relief to see that sort of nice light blue Impulse racing car behind him in his mirrors. He won't be glad, though, to see the car in front. That is, I believe, the... I can't remember which one it is, but I know it's one of the T3 esports cars. I think that's Jonas Hansel in the chat. Plenty of support for him, though, actually in the chat. Jonas Hansel. You can see Erkan Bakal and let's have a look at that one. Nilo Folo, or Nilo Folo, wishing Hansel the best of luck And so far, his race isn't going too badly. Up near to the top 10. Could be in with a shout come the end of the race, of course. But Peter Zuber, he'll be looking to see where his teammate will be. Where is Peter Molnar in the pits at the moment, taking on tyres? Could be very close.
He's
at the end of this
spinning his rear
again, the tyre spinner. Maybe that's something tells me that is either something that all of the drivers are consciously doing, or maybe it's something on iRacing that shows the tyres spinning, even though there's no input being put through them.
Very strange. I'm going to have to Google that one later. It's a new one on me, but Peter Molnar, very good stop from him. Stays out in second place. A little bit of drama just before the pit stops, but stays in second place, a little bit ahead of Peter Zuber. They're kind of the same distance apart from each other that they were before the stops, so very, very evenly matched, not only on track but in the pits as well. Their pit crews trying to get the better of one another and can't at the moment. One more pit stop to make that undercut work if they wish to, but they don't need, well, that's the argument we're having. Do they need to save fuel? Probably not, but we could see in the pits they're either trying to warm up the tyres or trying to use up more fuel. That remains to be seen. Diego Perarina back out in 4th place. I'm looking at Teo Schlerer here. He's in 5th place overall here. He has jumped ahead of quite a few drivers, being Chris Barrett and Jamie Conway. I'm just wondering if Teo Schlerer has not taken on any tyres in his stop. Let's take a look at the pit stop time. Just go to pit lane time here. So yeah, look at that. Teo Schlerer only 54 seconds in the pits, whereas others are well over a minute. James Ebram hasn't taken on tyres.
James Ebram did the same.
It seems to be an AM thing. Neither has Roy Mass or Hashimi. Well, they're very brave drivers, aren't they? But credit to them if they can make it work. Teo Schlerer and James Ebram matching each other for pit stops. I mean, it remains to be seen if that is the better thing to do. Justin Yoon is the one to look out for, as he did take on tyres, and he's got a bit of work to do to get himself back up the order. Let's take a look at the gap between him and his drivers ahead of him. He's 4 seconds down the road from Hashimi, who's 1 second behind Roy Mass, and then there's a big gap between Roy Mass and James Ebram, so Justin Yoon has got a little bit of work to do, but on fresher tyres. Let's see how he gets on. I mean, as the time goes by, it's just going to get slower and slower for Justin Yoon.
Yeah, but what a drive that is from Ryan Mars to get himself up into 3rd place. Up 10 places as well since the start of the race from the Stage 1 Racing driver. Great stuff on display from the 107. And it's always good when you don't see too much of yourself when you're having those sorts of races, because that means you're not involved in any of the incidents trying to carry your way up through the field. You can just focus on, get your head down and have a good drive, which is what we're seeing from Roy Mars. The only question mark will be around those tyres. Taking that quicker pit stop has allowed him to get the jump on some of the competition, likes of Justin Young, of course, who will expect maybe come the end of the race to find himself on the podium. But Roy Mars, he's certainly going to fight for it and like to keep his race being as good as it has been. 10th place overall, 3rd place in class. A very good showing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Roy Mass has driven well all season at AM category. He hasn't been fighting up the top, but he's just been bringing up nice, consistent results this season. And he finds himself, I think he's in the top 5 in the AM Championship, if my memory serves me right. So he's doing a great job so far. And if he can get himself on the podium in this race, brilliant step forward for the Dutch driver. Meanwhile, Nemethi still leads. Let's have a look at those lap times set just then.
I can see Perina's closing in. Sorry, I've just noticed Perina's closing in on Peter Zuber. And this looks like a great fight, isn't it, Alex? I'll let you talk us through this one as they come very close to one another in the Mercedes arena. And there's, I think, traffic in front.
Absolutely. So, closing in on the top 3. Here is Perini. Drops back a little bit coming out of the Mercedes arena. Oh, a touch of the gravel then from Peter Zuber. Let's get to him and let's take the outside route here. There's driver ahead. That is an Iridium motorsports car. That might be Juanto Avale. But to the inside goes Zuber. He's got to defend the inside as well from Perarina. Going into the hairpin. Perarina wasn't able to get alongside. It's a very narrow track here at the Nürburgring. Coming up the hill. Just further ahead from these drivers is Peter Molnar. He might stretch away from these drivers now that their battle is on. Perarina, let's see what he can do on this second half of the track. We saw he was quicker than Molnar on this part of the track. Is he quicker than Zuber? Let's get on board to see how the pace differs between the two. Coming out of the left-right section, coming on the back straight here, we'll approach the fast chicane. He gains considerably down this straight, draft and probably a different gear ratio. Through the chicane he goes, very close between them, into the Coca-Cola curve. Turning in earlier on that corner, but had to short shift to second there. He moves to the inside, does Peter Zuber, to try and break the draft from Perarina. He's definitely under threat from the Portuguese driver, who's trying to break Race Clutch's target for another 1, 2, 3 placing in this race, like what they did at Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago. Perarina is looking to be in the thought of the side of that team and break up that streak that they might well be on. Hasn't quite worked out on this lap for Perarina. He drops back a little bit, but a lot of traffic ahead of Peter Zuber here, including Peter Molnar, who on this lap, due to the traffic, I think that made the AJ Follner ahead. Bringing up things a little bit. Let's see if
actually, I think that's Andy Spicer actually that they're going to come up on in the 1-2-4 Apex Tech car. Down the inside they go. I think Andy Spicer gets out of the way nicely, lets this battling pair through, so the battle will continue on, seeing Peter Zuber and Diogo Perarina for Impulse Racing. They're closing in again, does Diogo, and looks a bit for the inside into the Michelin curve, but backs out of it. They cut that corner very nicely and then try and open it out. It seems though that while Perarina has the best run on the straights, it's the drive out of the corners that really goes in favour for Peter Zuber, and that means that when they come up to the area where they have the top speed, the top end coming in, it's far too late in the day for him to actually get the run up alongside and into the braking zone. So if I was Diogo Perarina, I'd put the pressure on, hope that the cracks start to show in the defence of Peter Zuber, and then maybe go for a move, or just absolutely blitz your in lap, go for the undercut and try and get that to work out for you, because it is seemingly very difficult for these LMP2 cars to pass one another here.
Yeah, it seems to be. It's tricky to pass anyone in any car on this circuit anyway, in these LMP2 cars more so, because once you've come out of a corner, another corner is right in your face straight away. But we're seeing Peter Zuber on the last half a lap or so, that rear end is really getting sideways. They are hotting it up, these drivers, for these positions. Defending dear death is Zuber, trying to hang on to third place and keep clutch racing in that top three. Perarina looking to get in the way of them, pushing everything he can, but we are seeing Perarina struggling coming out of the corners compared to the drivers in front, and it might be the difference in downforce they've got on these cars. Perarina presumably running less, as he's very quick on the faster sections of the track, particularly this one through the Schumacher S here and on the back straight. But it is the slower corners, particularly in the Mercedes arena and the Coca-Cola curve, where Perarina has to be a bit more tentative on the throttle. You can see he's turning in earlier for these corners, and that will suggest that he's able to rotate the rear end a lot more around the corner. But the advantage that Zuber is getting out of the corners is because he's turning in late, he's getting a straighter exit, and therefore doesn't need to correct the steering wheel as much. If we look to Peter Zuber and we see the battle for second in the lower right there, they're all within a second of one another, so they are getting a little bit of draft from one another. Let's compare their times coming across the line there. It's a 1:41.6 for Molnar, 41.5 for Zuber and Perarina, so nothing between them, but a little bit quicker than the driver ahead of Peter Molnar. Perarina does gain up on Zuber through sectors 3 and the start of the lap, but it might be this section here as they lap Mark Winters. Good
stuff there. Mark Winters getting very out of the way, wasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. He saw the leaders coming through, saw they were in an intense battle, and just thought, you know what, I'll get out of your way. That's, I mean, back markers.
Good for his race and for theirs.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, back markers, they receive, most race fans will know this, they'll receive a blue flag to let them know that a driver's coming towards them a lap ahead of them. It's not a flag to tell you to get out of the way though, so it is under the driver's discretion to decide to get out of the way or not. And normally the most etiquettical thing is to get out of the way though, which Mark Winters did there. Credit to him for letting these drivers have that battle and worry less about getting through traffic. As we see Perina very, very close coming out of the Michelin curves there. Coming down the back straight here, it's not a very long straight. He's not able to close in enough to make a move into the chicane, which is quite difficult anyway, as it's not a very big braking zone. Oh, they're taking every inch out of this track to try and get the better of one another. Perina very close coming out of the Coca-Cola curve there. Main straight here, not able to make a move just yet. But let's revert to a replay of Hans Blanker. Let's get back with this battle very quickly, mind. Hans Blanker has had a spin twice in one lap. Oh no, and he's spin straight into the tyres. No, that's not a good sign at all. That'll be suspension and engine damage. Probably there's another spin later on that makes him jump to the pits. So that was the next corner. And that is the car out of shape, out of alignment. And reverting to the pits, race over by the looks of it, a tow back to pits for Blancard. A shame for him as he is now placed 22nd place.
It's a shame, isn't it, to see his race fall back the way it has after what was a good start but not a good end, unfortunately, for Hans there in the Stage 1 racing car. Meanwhile, we can focus back, though, like you mentioned, to this good fight. There's also good fighting, though, I think, in the AM category now, as I think Justin Young and Kamal Hashimi have all arrived on the scene. And as we say that, we cut to an overtake. Justin Young down the inside into the first corner, late on the brakes, but had to check up because of the tight, narrow line he was forced into by Kamal Hashimi. Forced him really over onto the right-hand side of the kit. Justin Young forced to work for it and wasn't able to gain the benefits at the end. So now the fight continues on. All of these drivers that have been able to catch back up to Roy Mars, so don't expect this to go away anytime soon. Justin really forcing the car through the corners. He's got superior traction from his fresh pair of boots, as we see a car blinking in and out, and that is Kamal Hashim's internet issues seemingly rearing their ugly head. And well, I can tell you, I know a thing about internet issues, and my time on iRace, it's never fun, especially considering I was blinking out for so long. It's going to really start to worry him because he sees all the cars that issue. But also worry Justin Young because he's never going to know where exactly that car is going to reappear. Look at that into the vision. Very close to another. And now Justin Young, what does he do in this situation?
Flashes lights frantically. Yeah, there's nothing really you can do. To be fair to Kamal Hashimi, there's nothing really he can do either. A high ping is something that's very difficult to repair, particularly when you're bolted into a rig. Oh, and Justin June getting a little bit out of shape there. Now he's caught up with these drivers. He's getting dirty air. Therefore, the rear ends will become a little bit more sensitive. As we see Hashimi very wide exit from that corner there. And we're just going to revert to a replay here. Chris Barrett overtaking Theo Schlerer here in the fourth curve, coming out of it. Oh, he moves over and lets him by. So yeah, Theo Schlerer perhaps thinking, well, I'm in a different category, I'm leading my category, let's just let this person by so I can keep my race clean. But let's revert back to Justin Young. Oh, he has got himself ahead of Hashimi. I do apologise for missing that, ladies and gentlemen, but we do have a replay. In fact, we'll stay with it for the time being. We'll get a replay of the initial move soon. Hashimi is dropping back a little bit from Justin Young, so let's just take a look at it. Here to the inside, going into turn 3. Very brave move indeed from Justin Young. In fact, we saw a very similar move from Hashimi. Fought back coming through turn 4. But yeah, Hashimi making a very similar move on, I think it was Gutierrez Melendez earlier on. But very good move from Justin Young there, very brave, not wasting any time to get it back into the top 4. Now his sights will be set on Roy Mass just ahead, and that charge back into the top 3 is on for Justin Young, and he can work on catching up with James Ibram and Theo Schlerer if his tyres are going to be better towards this latter part of the race, which is certainly looking likely at the moment. we can compare the last lap time from these drivers. So if we look at Justin June, a 1:43.7, James Ebram a 1:43.2, but Justin June was in traffic, battling with the drivers ahead. You could say that he is matching Teo Schlerer at the moment, even when he is in traffic. So that time then, at 42.7, so this is rather impressive, Justin June, a second quicker than the drivers around him in category. Keep an eye on this driver at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. This could get interesting. We see he close in on Roy Mass here for third in category, stretched away from Hashimi. A second quicker, as we mentioned, at times. Might make this quick work of Roy Mass. Mass will be aware of his pace, conscious of his tyres, not wanting to scrub them off anymore, make the tyre wear worse than that what they are now. But we might see a lot of these AM drivers just sort of think, when they come to pit stop number 3, I'm not going to risk it, I'm going to take on tyres. But by which point Justin June has gained back a lot of time on them. So he'll feel he's at a good advantage at the moment.
He's certainly one of the fastest AMs on the circuit at the moment on account of his fresh pair of boots that he's got on board. What can he do now? Down the inside into the Michelin curve he goes, decisive to the inside like he did just a lap before on Kamal Hashimi, but it's not able to pull off just yet. Brilliant defensive driving around the outside from Roy Mass, giving Justin the track space, trusting that the line around the outside would give him the overspeed to stay in front. But now, as they make their way out of that right-hander and into the chicane, wow! And he overcooks it too much, comes across the gravel. That's going to be a slowdown, and Justin Young might find himself losing out on not 1, but 2 places. He's going to have to serve that in time for the next corner. Is Kamal Hashimi going to have a look down the inside?
This is interesting. He's not backing off at the moment. Roy Mass defending intensely. Oh, I thought he was going to turn in on him then, but thought better of it. Yeah, you would have thought
actually what's happened.
Yeah.
What has happened is that this fighting has meant that they were both slower going through that corner. It has actually allowed, I think, Justin Young to serve that slowdown because of how obviously slow he was in that fight, going around the outside, or at least attempting to go around the outside into the first corner. That both held him up and also Roy Mass up, which basically meant that, for effectively, both of them took the slowdown and kept Justin Young in that fight.
Seems to be, yes. So
very clever stuff.
Justin Jung is going to have to try again. Oh, we're seeing some sort of... Oh, well, look at this. Peter Zuber's battling with Diego Pereira here. Through the Mercedes arena we go. They have swapped a few positions already in the last few corners. Look at that, side by side coming through the Mercedes arena, giving each other plenty of room. And Zuber at the better line coming through turn 4. He hangs on to turn to position 3 at the moment. Let's just get a quick replay of how it all started. So it all started from back in the Coca-Cola curve, and Diego Pereira put it up the inside of Zuber. He had a bad corner through the chicane there, and a little bit of contact made, or more contact made coming down the straight here. But let's get back with the live action. That's how it started. Brilliant battle from these two. They're still very close together. And Justin June has dropped down the order as well. Something's happened to him. He's gone off at the Coca-Cola curve. Let's get a quick replay of that. Oh, he pushed it off wide and it comes loose. So his strategy might be pear-shaped now, as he's lost a fair bit of time. We'll go live and we might jump to another replay, as we have got an instant from Drew Lloyd, who was running in the top 10, still is running in the top 10, right behind. I'm not quite sure who that was, but got a bit too close, stamped on the brakes and shoved the car sideways. A lot going on in the last few minutes or so. So, Pereira's still in 4th place. Nothing to report on from him so far. But we have got Justin June, who's dropped to 5th place now. He drops the position to Hakimi. He's going to have to put in a big shift to try and catch back up to that top 3, which is still held by Schlerer, Ebram and Roy Mass.
Yeah, and having a look, Young is actually 3 seconds away from 4th placed in class Kamal Hashimi, so and that time to be gained, just on himself. Trevor, that has, like you mentioned, really set his strategy out of whack, though.
didn't actually catch much of that, Ed. Sadly, your mic was breaking up a little bit, but it sounded like internet issues. Mine or yours, not sure. But yeah, just say that again.
I'll blame Kamal Hashimi for that one.
But fair enough, yeah. Driver also struggling with internet issues. Yeah.
To mind, but I'll second pro, but I'm going.
Still struggling, I'm afraid, mate. But yeah, well, we'll just persevere with what we've got. Unfortunately, on our Vale here, trying to get himself up the order, get himself back into the top 10. He dropped 3 places from the start so far, and now makes a move on Roy Mass. And makes his way through a better line through turn 4 there. Now Vale did what Justin Yoon couldn't do a few moments ago. Gets himself into the top 10 now. 8th place overall, and now he can set his sights on Drew Lloyd ahead. Drew Lloyd is how far up ahead? Take a look. Quite a long way ahead, 28 seconds ahead. It's quite a long way for Avale, so it might be 8th in class, 10th in the overall standings at the moment for him, unless anything else happens in this race. We'll be having more pit stops coming up very, very shortly. Let's take a look to Roy Mass. He has got Hashimi closing in on him behind. Hashimi's had a few good laps, it seems. Gaining in on his rival for 3rd in the race at the moment, and they have got another pro driver bearing down on them, Alvaro Gutierrez Melendez of Iridium Motorsports. Trying to get himself past these drivers and catch up with his teammates. A commence battle for the top 10 potentially. 8th in category. So with any drivers in the pit lane, none have come into the pit lane on this lap, so most of them might make it to the 1 hour 30 marker. We'll have to see on the next lap here. Closes in on Roy Mass. Perhaps the battling with Justin Jung has pushed the tyres over that cliff that Ed May alluded to earlier. A lot of these drivers going to be fighting on bare minimum when it comes to tyres at this point in the race. They haven't taken on tyres yet. They might choose to after this stint, but it'll be a little bit of you show me yours and I'll show you mine in terms of pit strategy. Who will be the first to decide I'm going to take on tyres and lose track position potentially, with other drivers gambling on keeping their tyres on for the remainder of the race. Only 1 stop left from all of these drivers presumably, unless any drama happens to them. Oh, and up the inside goes Gutierrez on Hashimi, and we are seeing quite respectful racing between the 2 categories here. We saw it from Schlerer earlier, and we just saw it from Hashimi there. He's not getting in the way of Gutierrez too much, as they are in different categories, letting each category have their own battles while they are fighting their own. Hashimi probably sees this as an opportunity to use Gutierrez to catch up with Roy Mass, just to get that last little bit of time gap reduced between him and his rival for the 3rd spot on the podium. Now, do we see any drivers coming into the pits? None are coming in at the moment. Interesting to see. In that final corner, Gutierrez has a very good run on Roy Mass. This is for overall position of 11th, but these drivers are in different categories, so their points are irrelevant in these positions here. Down the inside goes Gutierrez. Roy Mass will not contend too much. Oh, and it wasn't actually a good exit from the corner from Roy Mass. Hashimi gained quite a bit coming out of turn 1 there. And the battle is on between these 2 drivers, very, very close together. And Justin June has caught up to the back of them after his brief excursion at the Coca-Cola curve about 2 laps ago. So flashing his lights, trying to force a mistake from the 2 drivers ahead that forced him into a mistake not too long ago. Oh, and look at that. Justin June gets by Kamal Hashimi coming out of the 4th curve there. It looked like a lot of understeer coming out of the corner from Hashimi there. And in fact, it might be the telling that these tyres are really not lasting the full 2 hours on these cars. Justin June just blasts away from the Apex Tech car and towards third place on track. Roy Mass of stage 1. Stage 1 for Justin June is getting past him though. We've seen him struggle a few moments ago. But a good run coming out of the Michelin curve there. Down the back straight here is Justin June able to go for a move going into the chicane. He tried it a while ago. It didn't quite work out. Oh, and he does get it up the inside, and Roy Mass has no choice but to surrender. Into third place goes Justin June. Rather brave move. Is a difficult corner to overtake on. The tight chicane is difficult in itself, but the open chicane we're seeing here today even harder because there's less of a braking zone. But Roy Mass is not going to give up on that third spot. Oh, and a little bit of the touch of the rear has to go across the grass. And Kamala Hashimi has lost the rear and he takes out both of them. Big crash going into turn 1 between the top 3 of 3rd, 4th and 5th in category. So here we go. June, Hashimi and Roy Mass off the track. Now Hashimi seemed to lose it on his own. Very strange indeed. Let's see if we can get a replay of that just to establish ourselves of what actually happened then. Here is Hashimi. Oh, he touches the grass on the outside and the rear gives in. He was just a passenger as soon as the car was sideways and the others could do nothing about it. They were just trying to enter the corner regularly. Now that'll be a lot of damage on those cars. That really turns things around for this AM category. Is now in 3rd place in category, inheriting the position. Laszlo Burdeny there. 3rd place ahead of him with no damage, presumably, on his car compared to Roy Mass, Hashimi and Justin June, who has aborted to the pits. There he is. Too much damage on that car, presumably. And what was 2nd place last time out of Spa-Francorchamps, and a good championship bid so far from the German driver. This week has not gone so well, unfortunately. And there might be a stewards inquiry later on for that one, just to sort of establish what happened, see if it's punishable by penalty. But big drama here in the AM category here at Nürburgring for round 4. We do have 4 rounds left after this one. After this race will be the halfway point. And we were alluding to the pit stops before all that drama unfolded. Jamie Conway is coming in the pits again, so he'll have to go out with a bigger fuel tank. In the pits goes Spence Nemethi. This will be his final pit stop, presumably, of the race. Peter Molnar stays out. Peter Zuber stays out. And Diego Pereira, who got a little bit unsettled there, coming out the Coca-Cola curve. He also stays out as they pass by Spence Nemethi, who'll come in for just fuel, presumably.
And as we see cars come in, I've come back into the commentary box. Apologies, everyone. My Wi-Fi decided to go south for a little bit, but it turns out that me vanishing for a bit makes everything happen all at once. We just saw, didn't we? Big incident there. Justin Jung, unfortunately, his charge up through the field, his charge to try and get that all-important class podium has not gone his way. However, what a good showing it has been from the newcomer to the championship, Laszlo Burdeny, the European driver, coming through for a what would be a great finish there. Currently showing first in his own class, but that is actually 3rd in the AM category overall. What a race it would be from him. He's coming up to, I think, his next pit stop, isn't he?
He might be coming in at the end of this stop as we see Chris Barrett and James Ebram in the pits. Let's see if Laszlo comes into the pits. Now, Laszlo, his eyes would have lit up there with the sight of the incident in front. Of course, no one wants any incidents to happen, but inheriting 3rd place, he'll take that as he comes into the pits now. So he'll take on fuel. Mind you, I think Laszlo might have been one of the drivers last time who... Let's take a look at his pit lane time last time. In fact, it's not going to show it because he's already in the pits. He might have taken on tyres last time by. James Ebram is back out on track, so he is safe and sound in 2nd place, but a long way behind Theo Schlerer. Let's see how many times he's come into the pits, see if he hasn't pitted already.
Yeah, stop.
So this
what
top
a drive,
4,
isn't it, from the Frenchman so far? Sorry there, Alex, carry on.
I was just about to say exactly the same thing. In fact, why is he an AM driver? Put him up to pro category. Let's see what he can do up there.
That might be happening next season. You know, they do obviously assess the drivers. I don't think they assess them mid-season, but they assess them at the end of the season. If Theo Schlerer has any more good performances and keeps doing so well in this championship, he could definitely be a candidate to be moved up into the pro class. But what's been nothing short of a professional driver has been these drivers up in front. But Peter Zuber, he's actually caught up now to Peter Molnar. You might be seeing a little bit of battling between the two teammates. Benson Mathy already been in and out of the pits from the race lead, currently down in 4th place as Diego Perina. He goes for the undercut, but then, well, overcooks it into the first corner coming out of the pits. This could hamper his chances. He just needs to absolutely nail this outlap for the undercut to really work out, and he could find himself maybe even gaining 2 positions there as the 2 race clutch cars that were fairly close to him, don't forget, before this phase of pit stops. He might find a gain, and we see one car stay out, one car come in. Peter Zuber, this is his turn to come into the pits, probably actually to cover off the charge that we're seeing from Diego Perina, to cover off any sort of run that he may get and allow Peter Molnar to try an alternative strategy, try and overcut, extending his stint by a couple more than his Impulse Racing rival. Gets it nicely through the first corner, and we'll follow him through the circuit, but also follow Diego Perina, because where will he come out? Where is he at the moment? He's all the way back here, going through the left and right section into the final fast section of this Nürburgring GP lap. Flat out all the way down the hill, and then they come into the chicane, sending it there with all they can do, and all that Diego Perina can do is do as best as he can to carry the speed, to have the best outlap that he can manage. Peter Zuber, though, is already up and running and into the first corner as Perina, I think, gets out of the final corner there and across the start-finish line. So, definite margins there. A big gain from Peter Zuber. Has he taken enough fuel on board? Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. Very quick stop, though, wasn't it, from the race clutch car? Oh, yeah. Could we see a similar thing to what we saw, as we're going to mention it again, to James Ebram last time out in Spa?
Very good point you've alluded to there. Peter Zuber pitting later, a whole second less than Perina, but he's actually gained far more than a second on that pit lane excursion there. And we see Diego Perina, he's lost a fair few seconds. Let's switch over to interval and just see the gap between the two. Zuber versus Perina. Yeah, 10-second gap between the two of them. That's very strange. So it must be that pit entry and maybe late into the box. Let's compare the pit lane time between the two drivers. We'll see Peter Molnar enter the pits now. Pit lane time, yeah, 3 seconds between the two, so quite a long way, including the second in the stall. So it might be that Perina's pit entry and pit exit is a bit more conservative.
A lot of it as well comes down to stopping for your pit box. You can gain so much time just by braking late, braking hard, and getting the car stopped. We'll also see maybe a battle between the two teammates here as Peter Zuber rounds out through the final corner. Peter Molnar is on the pit exit. He's got his car up and running. It could be a battle into the first corner as he finally can put the power down. Whereas Peter Zuber, here he is, as they come into the first corner. Well, it is going to be, Molnar ahead of Zuber in the battle of the two Peters. But Benson Mathy has been clear of the rest, hasn't he? Leading this race from start to finish, put it on pole position, and now just 20 minutes to go. 6 seconds behind. Looks set to be a comfortable race victory.
Very comfortable indeed. Mind you, that gap has stabilised a little bit over the last last half an hour or so between himself and his teammates behind. But we're definitely seeing something very crucial in this race today that might come down to affect other races this season, where if you can save fuel, maintain pace, but save fuel and do as many laps as you can on the tank that you're on, it does help in the pits. As we saw Perina come in before Zuber and Molnar, miles behind them now, and Zuber came in later than Molnar, and he's dropped a little bit of time from him in as well. So it does add up. Just a second difference on the times, but it does add up when it comes to on-track distance and time. So Molnar saving fuel absolutely to perfection on that last stint, and he has broken away from not only his teammates but Diego Pereira.
I don't think it's only that last stint, it's all the race long. He's been able to save the fuel and extend, and now he's got that extra advantage, doesn't he, to his competitors, to the likes of Peter Zuber, and also, most importantly, Diego Pereira, a driver that we saw in the mix right at the start of the race, fighting with both of these two race clutch drivers, both the Peters, trying to keep him behind. And like we said, they've been able to carry on through with their great race pace, even if the qualifying wasn't maybe the best. Peter Molnar had a great start, as did Peter Zuber, and when they got up there into third place, I don't know what it is about these race clutch drivers, but they're always able to capitalise when it matters most in the race and work together, which is the hardest thing to do when you're racing all together, separate cars, but as a team, because you've all got your own races to worry about. Somehow, how is that like to try and manage all of that and still come out on top with all three of you, Alex?
I'm not sure, but yeah, well,
impossible. Near enough.
It's one I can't explain, but yeah, exactly.
Work together is so difficult, and for all three of them to be singing from the same hymn sheet, so to say, wow, just wow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that's crucial in endurance racing, is being at one. But in endurance racing, you take it in turns in the same car. But when it comes to, you could probably call this sprint racing, to be honest, although it's quite a long race in 2 hours. In sprint racing, it is quite difficult.
Can we call it jog racing?
Yeah, all right. In jog racing, well, egos do come into play, don't they? We all us racers, our inner instinct is to be number one. We want to be better than our teammates, including other drivers on the grid. But these three drivers are working together very, very well indeed. I mean, with the success that they had at Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago, and with the success that they're having as it stands today, it means that towards the end of the season they might be able to just have enough points ahead of other drivers to not worry about them, and then just go for a nice big battle at the end of the season amongst each other, which, by the way, the final round of the season is at Sebring on the 22nd of August. I know it's on the 22nd of August. Easy for me to remember because that's my wedding day. I sadly won't be commentating on that broadcast, but I will catch up on it the next day. But you guys can watch the broadcast live with Ed May and whoever is alongside him that day. The Championship Showdown, presumably on that day at Sebring. A wonderful, wonderful track when it comes to endurance racing.
Well, we'll be sure to give you the congratulations for the big day, but me and whoever I'm commentating with will be with our other one and true only love, which is sim racing, and we'll be able to hopefully look forward to a great conclusion to this excellent Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. This season has already given us some excellent racing, and then definitely not done tonight here as we see Drew Lloyd sliding it down the inside of back marker traffic. I think that was Carlos Ponce for Iridium Motorsports, just getting out of the way. I'm seeing a little bit of a fight though, potentially in the pro class. I think Juan Val is closing in to Alvaro Melendez. Yes, he is. Two Iridium Motorsports teammates. They might have a bit of a squabble on, you know.
One is for the top 10 overall and 8th in class. So Vale, is he the quicker of the two? Let's compare their times. So let's.
It was quicker.
Oh yeah, 3/10 quicker. That is convincingly quicker, particularly on a track like this in these sort of cars. So it's going to be interesting between these two for that 8th spot, and two teammates especially. Oh, and we were looking at the AM category shenanigans a while ago, and Justin June, who has rejoined the track after repairing the damage, has had an incident going into turn one, so the car crabbing. Oh, as he just about avoids the drivers we just watching. That was Avali and Gutierrez Melendez passing by. Justin Junior's car is too damaged beyond repair of the mechanics. Quick fire fixing it in the garage, but he will carry on anyway. If he finishes the race, he gets points. If he doesn't finish the race, he doesn't get points. So that'll be what's on his mind. He just has to be super, super careful for the remainder of this race, which is 15 minutes. So, and it has been A stellar performance from Benson Matthew, who squeezed himself into the top 3 at Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago. And this time around he's done even better and jumped his teammates to the top spot of the podium, as it stands anyway, as he leads this race by a gap of 6 seconds still ahead of his teammate Peter Molnar, and a further 4 seconds ahead of Peter Zuber. So a brilliant performance yet again from Race Clutch Racing. And we're just talking about them. Brilliant team in this championship, dominating it so far. It didn't start off the season quite as well as they've done right now. Peter Zuber got himself onto the podium in the first race of the season at Hockenheim. And he has consistently got himself into that podium spot as each race has come by. It'll be interesting to see what this does to the championship coming out of this race, which we'll present to you in the next race, which is Monza in 2 weeks' time on the 11th of July.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, this is still something to look out for as some of the battles unfolding on the circuit, some of the different ways we can see the drivers approaching this final 15 minutes. The race has started to cool off a little bit, as have the temperatures on circuit, as the lights begin to dim and we start to see the lights come on. These LMP2 cars, a lovely little sunset finish here for the drivers to make their way through to. Followed some great performances though this evening, and what a drive it has been from the newcomer. It's always difficult, isn't it, Alex, when you start in a new championship midway through the season? All these other drivers, you'll know that they've been established, they're familiar with the car, they're familiar with the format, they just know what to do to get the best results in these 2-hour format races. But Laszlo has really taken to this like a duck to water, hasn't he? Very good showing. Dropped back early on, but he didn't let that faze him. And that was the most important part, is that he kept his head down. He didn't lose his cool when things weren't going his way, and he's coming back for what could be an excellent 3rd place.
Absolutely, I think you've worded that absolutely perfect. To be honest, Ed, Laszlo, it didn't start off great for him, and he has picked off one position at a time and got, I'm going to say he got lucky with getting into this top 3 here, but you need a bit of luck in racing. You need it, and you need to be in the right places at the right time, and Laszlo has got himself into those places. A top 3 on your debut to the championship, that's a job well done. It's quite a thrill coming into a new championship, and not knowing anyone, not knowing the format as you mentioned, and all you just want to do is get everything right, stay on track, don't make any mistakes, get it to the end and get yourself a good place. And that's what Laszlo's done here today. He'll come out of this race firing on all cylinders, and he'll go into the next race in 2 weeks' time at Monza thinking, well, I'm doing pretty good here, let's go for more. And he'll go for the top 2 spots rather than top 3.
He will be brimming with confidence, won't he, in a couple of weeks when we go to Monza. But at the moment, I think this is going to be, well, we often sometimes can't say who's going to be our driver of the day, but for me, Laszlo Badarani is definitely my driver of the day here from this race. The AIS Simulators ADAC 2-hour prototype race, and, well, thoroughly deserved if he's able to take it home across the line.
Yep, I agree. I'll let you call this week's one. Yep, absolutely agree. It's been a stellar debut from him. Should be very pleased with himself. Hopefully we can get him logged into the AM category system for the next race. But a stellar drive from him in this race, nearing the top 10, but not quite there. 12th overall at the moment. But let's resume with more racing on track. We have just over 10 minutes to go in this race as we see the 137 car of Kamal Hashimi move over to let by Alvaro Fernandez Montes and Peter Zuber in 3rd place here. Peter Zuber in the lap traffic. I mean, this team, Race Clutch Racing, they can just see out the race here. They've got a big gap ahead to Diego Pereira. They just need to get by the lap traffic very safely and cleanly indeed to bring home what will be another 1, 2, 3 for Race Clutch Racing with just 10 minutes to go now. What a performance from this team yet again.
Yeah, brilliant drive from all 3 drivers. Benson Matthew, though, class of the rest. He's kept that gap and just nurtured it all race long, hasn't he? Looked after his car, looked after the fuel, also just been so confident and consistent. I don't think we've seen a single moment from Benson Matheore. Sometimes we see the leader have a moment into the chicane, drop the focus for a moment, allows the rest to catch up, but he's been absolutely faultless from start to finish. And as we come into, well, the final 9 minutes of racing here at the Nürburgring for the fourth round of this Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship, it's just going to be about nursing it home from all three of the race clutch drivers. So I think Diogo Pereira has, unfortunately, I think just started to drop off a little bit. I think he's noticed that the race isn't really on from him. That final pit stop just didn't work out. Wasn't able to get the best run in, wasn't able to save enough fuel as the race went on to have that stop nice and short. Again, asking a lot from the car. You can see it stepping out of him as he comes through Coca-Cola curve, and it's always been his issue. I think that's been the reason why he's had pace but has not been able to take it to those race clutch cars. Is his run out of that corner, his car just hasn't seemingly been set up for the drive.
Yeah, lapping, as you said, lapping slower than the top two. I mean, he had a quicker lap than Peter Zuber that time, but we did see Peter Zuber was lapping a lot of traffic on that lap, which Pereira, by the looks of it, is about to bump into. But yeah, I think Pereira will be frustrated with this race. He had that brief off coming into this corner here. I think it's the Porsche curve. Yeah, with the mix-up of positions between Peter Zuber and Peter Mono, he'd probably be a little bit annoyed about that. Frustrating races, he wasn't able to get by and into the top three quite as easy as he would have liked, and that might have shaped the race a little bit differently for him. But you know what? Fourth place is still a good result for him. He's had a pretty good battle with those drivers throughout this race. They were just able to work together really, really well and get the upper hand on everyone in this field, not just Diogo here. But yeah, you should be pleased with fourth place. Did get a better result at the Hockenheim all them weeks ago. But if Diogo does attend more races, he will be a championship contender. And he's up there with the pace of Nemethi, Molnar and Zuber. Certainly, hopefully, we'll see him in the future races. Next time, as we mentioned, in 2 weeks' time, we are at Monza. And then a couple of weeks after that, on the 25th of July, we are at Road America, one of my favourite circuits on iRacing. And then 2 weeks after that, on the 8th of August, we'll be at Suzuka for round 7. And then round 8 of the championship, as we mentioned earlier, the 22nd of August is the final round at Sebring. You can catch all these broadcasts live on Simracersworld TV via YouTube, Twitch and Facebook. This one to you coming today from YouTube only. You can catch all of these races live on these channels. And a huge shout out to Apex Technologies today for hosting these great championships, season in, season out. And this one definitely shaping up to be a classic. And of course also a shout out to the sponsors of today's race and broadcast here, AIS, All In Sports. And every race a different sponsor comes along supporting the league, helping them put on these races today, and of course in turn gets them greater exposure for to their customer base. AIS Solutions, and the name of the race is AIS Simulators, the ADAC 2-hour prototype race.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course without those sponsors we wouldn't be able to go racing, we wouldn't be able to bring you all of the action. So obviously big shout outs to Apex Technologies and All In Sports for supporting everything that we're able to see and bring you on circuit for Simracersworld TV. And another thing to mention as well as we come into the last moments of the race, as it is starting to die down a little bit, we hope that you've enjoyed everything we've provided to you this evening, all of the great action on circuit that we've been rambling on about a bit, Alex. But if you have enjoyed it, we've got plenty of viewers in the YouTube chat. If you're able just to check that you've liked the stream, it helps us out massively, allows us to keep on going, gives us good feedback for future broadcasts. We've just as well recently had our 200th broadcast on Simracersworld TV, still going strong. And if you are hungry for more action, well, in about half an hour's time we go live yet again for the Sunday Drivers MX5 series at Pocono. MX5 races all evening long. That's going to be one to watch out for as well. But now we come to this, the final stages, and some battles are starting to heat up again. We can see Alvaro Fernandez Montes. I think he's in a little bit of a tussle with Roy Mars. Is that? No, it's not. That's actually still the fight between the two teammates, Alvaro Montes and Alvaro Melendez.
Both in different categories, granted, but the two teammates usually towing each other along. And a little bit of a battle here, not necessarily an overtaking battle, but this is the fight for 12th overall. Melendez is 9th in category. Montes has squeezed himself into the top 3 in category with the demise of Roy Mas, Kamal Hashimi and Justin Jung earlier on in the race. So a very well-deserved podium for him, being towed along by his teammate for much of this final stint in the race here. Well, if we just cut to the front of the field, but Nemethi has extended his lead still. So even though he is out in front by 6+ seconds, he is still finding the desire to be the quickest man on track and boost his times up. As we see the last time by, he was a couple of tenths quicker than Peter Molnar, not quicker than Peter Zuber, who might actually be catching up a little bit with his team ahead. Is probably not enough time to catch him up and make a move for that second place. Peter Zuber on Peter Molnar, but the team will be very much focused on that 1, 2, 3 placing, as they are 13 seconds ahead of closest rival Diego Pereira. It's been yet another brilliant race from Race Clutch. Meanwhile, in the AM category, we haven't mentioned it for quite a while, these two up here, as they've just been a race of their own. Theo Schlerer has been kept honest. There's been a gap developing between him and James Ebram, but he has had to keep the hammer down and not lose out too much time to his rival James Ebram in second place, 15 seconds down the road. James Ebram, another good result here. Got very unlucky at Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago, but he gets himself back on the podium here today and will probably continue leading the championship in the AM category, but Theo Schlerer is really bringing the battle to him, and it could be an interesting battle between these two drivers later on down the line. And third place at the moment held by Laszlo Berdini here, as he comes across the line to start his penultimate lap, I think it is. But third place on his debut, and Ed May's nominated driver of the day in this race.
Yeah, absolutely great driver. It's been a great drive as well from Vince Nemethi. Don't think we've seen the white flag just yet. I think we'll be treated to another lap for Vince Nemethi, and that could mean the race goes a lap longer than some of the drivers were expecting. So could have some final last minute jeopardy out on circuit. Drivers will, of course, fuel for the length of time they expect, but maybe not the amount of time that they will actually get in the end. So we'll have a look to see who's been anticipating maybe going an extra lap longer. That's the Nemethi as we come into the final minute of running. He'll definitely make it across the line with one more lap still to go, but it will be close, which could catch some people out. Making his way up to the line, Benz Nemethi through the chicane at the end of the lap. Such a quick area of the circuit. I love it every time we go on board with them, isn't it? We see them blitzing through there, carrying the speed, leaning on with the downforce as Benz Nemethi rounds out the Coca-Cola curve and sees the white flag wave for him. So we come onto the final lap. 70 laps we've been able to fit in 20 hours here at the Nürburgring. And what 70 laps they have been for this man, Benz Nemethi. Pole position, led from start to finish. The only time he wasn't leading was when he was basically out of sync in the pit stops. Has a bit of a celebratory slide already going through the Mercedes arena. Car very loose, shows that he's wringing its neck still, even with 7 seconds to second place.
Absolutely, still trying to get the best out of it. I mean, there is a bonus point for fastest lap. Whether he's trying to get that, let's just take a look. Best lap, well, it's held by him, but his inner driver instinct trying to make the car go quicker even still. But yeah, Nemethi on his final charge towards the checkered flag the end of the race. Theo Schlerer will also start his final lap of the race, flamboyantly coming out of the Coca-Cola curve to start his final lap now, and will take another win. Consecutive wins, in fact, as he took the win in dominant style, quite like this one at Spa-Francorchamps that time ago. And Nemethi will come through the final section of the lap, blast through that fast chicane for the final time and into the Coca-Cola curve. You turn left onto the Nordschleife, but you turn right onto the Nürburgring Grand Prix end of the lap, and that will take him to the checkered flag to win his first win of the season. Benson Nemethi takes first place here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and he slows down to wait for his teammates as it's another 1-2-3 for Race Clutch Racing. Peter Molnar takes second, Peter Zuber third, and they line up side by side to celebrate the win together. Diego Pereira, it hasn't quite been the race that he wanted. He wanted that top three. He started third, but is fourth in the end. Good championship points and great entertainment by him to us, but it's a fourth place for Diego Pereira in the Impulse Racing machine. Chris Barrett of Apex Tech Racing takes the top 5, 2 places gained from the start, and he'll be joined in the top 6 by his teammate Jamie Conway. And good points again for Apex Tech Racing, not quite as many as Race Clutch Racing, but still good points for the team. Flashes lights as he comes across the line for 6th place. Drew Lloyd will take 7th position for Apex Tech Racing. A bit of drama early on in the race, but 4 places gained by him. But this is the winner of the AM category. There's 2 in a row here for Theo Schlerer. He comes across the line. Another win for Virtual Best Racing. And Theo Schlerer, the Frenchman, wins here at Nürburgring. Brilliant, dominant race from him in that AM category. Led it in category from start to finish. James Ebram, a difficult night all them weeks ago at Spa-Francorchamps. He has well and truly left that behind with a strong 2nd place here, and presumably still holding the lead in the championship. And it is this man, Laszlo Berdeny, our driver of the day, taking 3rd in category to take up that final spot on the podium. And they are your 1-2-3s in the Pro and AM category. We'll revert to the results. In fact, we'll revert to them now. The classifier results here of round 4. And now we're at the halfway point of the championship. Here are the official results of the race here today at Nürburgring. Benson Nemethi takes the win, just under 7 seconds ahead of teammate Peter Molnar, who takes that just 2 seconds over Peter Zuber, his teammate. Another Race Clutch 1-2-3. Diego Pereira takes 4th position, Chris Barrett 5th, Jamie Conway 6th, and Drew Lloyd in 7th position. Theo Schlerer, as we mentioned, first in the AM category, followed by James Ebram. Juanto Avali gets himself into the top 10 overall to take the last of the runners on the lead lap in 10th there. Laszlo Berdeny takes 3rd on his debut to the championship. Alvaro Gutierrez takes 12th position overall, with Alvaro Fernandez taking 13th. Roy Mass, with the drama with him, and Kamal Hashimi and Justin Jung takes 14th place. Mark Winters in 15th with Andy Spicer 16th. Jonas Hanschel takes 17th with Carlos Ponce in 18th position. Kamal Hashimi in 19th position, the drama we saw with him, and Justin June earlier on, 19th for him with Daniel Nunes in 20th. AJ Follner, the founder of the championship, in 21st. 22nd for Justin June with Hans Blankart in 23rd. Alexander Rogenbuch in 24th with Gabriel Stork in 25th. Rodrigo Lizawiski in 26th with an early retirement, as did Felipe Riquelme, taking 27th and retiring at the end of the first lap. That has been round 4 of the championship, but don't go away, ladies and gentlemen, as we will have some interviews which will be conducted by Ed May. So take it away for this final part of our broadcast tonight, please, Ed.
Yes, thank you very much, Alex. I will be able to bring in race victor to the comms box now. Benson Nemethi joins us after, well, a commanding race from you, wasn't it? Pole position, led from start to finish. You've got to be happy with a result like that.
Hello guys, yeah, I had result was pretty pleasing. I think it couldn't have gone better.
No, I don't think it could have done, mate. And I think you also bagged the fastest lap of the race to boot, which was excellent for you. I think you bagged yourself an extra few bonus points in that regard. But also, just talk us through your team's preparation for the race, because, again, it's another 1, 2, 3. How much work went in behind the scenes?
I mean, this was a track for SCO, so we practiced quite a lot for it. I think in May we did around 700-800 laps each on this track, and it's just like riding a bicycle. You can't really forget it, so it was quite easy to get back to the rhythm for this weekend.
Were there any changes, though, that you had to make? Obviously, as iRacing updated and made a few tweaks here and there, was there anything that needed to be changed for your setup, or did it just feel the same?
Actually, no, because I think the dollar hasn't changed since that SCO round. So basically, we could take the same setup, change just a few things because this race was in different temperatures, but I would say the setup was like 95% the same as the SCO one.
Fair enough. Well, a great performance from you, and I'm sure that you and your teammates will be very happy with, again, another 1, 2, 3. We come now to the next round at Monza. Is that one again that you'll have some prior experience at?
Yeah, that's the track I have the most laps in with this car. I think it's close to 2,000 laps around Monza, so I think that round will be quite favourable for us, I think.
So what you're saying is you're the person to beat, Bence. You're the person off the start that everyone's going to want to get ahead of.
I wouldn't say that. The beaters are really fast as well, but guess we will have to see in 2 weeks.
We'll find out, won't we? We'll find out in a couple of weeks, Bence. Thank you for joining us in the comms box. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out, though?
Yeah, I would like to shout out to my teammates, not just the 2 Peters, but the other guys at Race Clutch, because they obviously have a lot with the setup and the preparation.
Thank you, Bence. I'm sure they'll be very happy to hear that, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you guys in 2 weeks.
So that was Bence the Matey joining us in the comms box, and then let's bring in second place Peter Molnar to the comms box. And Peter, welcome again. A good drive from you. You weren't able to have a repeat of your last time out at Spa, but still second place. You've got to be very happy with that one.
Yeah, I'm very happy. It was a nice race, but to be honest, I expected that I won't be challenging for the win here because this is one of my weaker tracks. So I'm very pleased with second place, I think.
Just talk us through the start of the race, though, because we saw you and Peter Zuber up there with Diego Perellino for a majority of the race. How was it like trying to work not only with your teammate, but also against another driver there in another car?
Well, after the first stint, we saw that he's not able to save 19 laps. So we were pretty confident that in the last stint, we will have a bigger gap to him. So we weren't really worried about him.
And what was it like as well, sort of in that later stage, just managing the car? What steps did you have to take to make sure that the fuel lasted?
I think here it was pretty easy with this fuel limit to get 19 laps. I think the consumption, if I push, it was around like 3.02, and I needed 2.94 to make 19 laps, so it was pretty minor lifts. And I lifted in turn 1, the hairpin, and the corners before the back straight, and that was it.
Well, definitely, it was a good drive from you to come through in the end for a good second place. That does the championship well good, and you also finish ahead of one of your main rivals for the championship, Pete Zuber, your teammate, who's currently only 6 points ahead of you as we come into the halfway point of the championship. Does your focus shift that way?
I don't know. I'm not really thinking about the championship yet because we have lots of rounds to go, and the next tracks I don't really know what to expect. Like for sure they won't be as bad of a tracks as this one was for me. But I think the weakest one for me will be Road America, and that's the others will be pretty good, I think.
Well, we don't go there for a little while yet. We go to Monza next, and like you mentioned, that's going to be a excellent circuit. And thank you for joining us. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out though on the broadcast, Molnar?
I think I just want to say thank you for you guys for providing a very nice broadcast, and I want everyone to follow Race Clutch on Twitter. It's @RaceClutch.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. We'll see you in a couple of weeks at Monza.
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you.
So out goes Peter Molnar, and in comes Peter Zuber, his teammate, who finished third place in that race. And Peter, I'm going to ask you very similar questions to what I just asked Peter. It was a good race from you finishing on the podium, but was that something that you were hoping for a little bit more out of that race?
Yeah, hey guys, good evening. Not really, no, I wasn't really hoping for any more than that. I usually like racing this circuit, but today I wasn't on my top performance really. But as long as we finish P1, 2 and 3, that's perfectly fine for the whole team. But yeah, basically that's what you really get for the lack of practice that I haven't really put in for this weekend. Just the other weekends before certainly went better. But yeah, for Monza and the upcoming tracks, I can promise I'll be stronger.
All right, yeah, you'll learn your lesson from Monza. Hopefully, Peter, and we'll see you up towards the front. But you mentioned that getting the 1, 2, 3 was really important for you and your teammates, but you were really instrumental in that, considering the battles you had with Diogo Pereira at the beginning phase of the race.
Yeah, really. Diogo was really quick, and he made it really difficult for me to make the strategy work of saving fuel. And I actually did not manage to save fuel in the first stint, but then I did end up making the strategy work. And also it was really important to keep him behind us, because we didn't know his pace in clean air, and he might have been able to pull away slightly. But basically what we were doing is that we were saving fuel to make sure that we do save time in the last pit stop, no matter what. And if the guys behind us who pit earlier, they will definitely lose time in the pit cycle, so we would be in front for the last stint.
Definitely, that's some pretty good insight you've given us there, Peter, into sort of the way you and your teammates have to approach these races to keep it 1, 2, 3. Me and Alex, weren't we? We were talking about how amazing it was to get you all singing from the same hymn sheet and working together to get it as a 1, 2, 3. Is that something that you guys work on outside of the races, or is that just something you're naturally all able to do?
Rather the latter one, really. We can do it purely because we are so used to saving fuel and thinking about the whole race as a global, or like from the global perspective, really, as we mainly race this car, and basically to be fast with this car you need to save fuel. So that's really the goal and the objective to reach, and it turns out to be fast overall as well. So yeah, this is basically what we are usually doing anyway.
Well, definitely. Thank you very much, Peter, for that great insight. And also, we'll wish you all the best in a couple of weeks when we see you at Monza. But before we bid adieu to you for those 2 weeks, is there anyone you'd like to shout out on Simracersworld TV?
Yes, of course. I would like to thank my teammates for preparing the setup and the strategy, helping with it, and also some help regarding the whole track as a whole. But really, they done a great job. They definitely did better than me here. Hopefully we can keep this top 3 positions for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, definitely will. Wish you all the very best, Peter, for Monza in a couple of weeks. Take care.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
So that was Peter Zuma, and that rounds out our interviews of the top 3 in the pro class. But now we shift our focus to the top 3 in the AMS, and we have Theo Schlerer in the Cars box, and welcome That was a great drive from you. Again, another drive similar to the one we saw from you at Spa. Just managing it nicely, and you've got the really great rewards at the end.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, it was more such a practice race because James had an issue early on, so he left me alone, and I just had to keep the pace.
Yeah, definitely. What was that like, having a race where you don't necessarily race the other cars, but you're more racing the stopwatch? How crucial was it to make sure that your focus didn't drop?
Excuse me, could you please repeat?
It's not as you were racing at Spa when you were racing with other cars. You're racing more against the stopwatch and more against the actual stint times, anything else. How important was it to keep focused and on the task at hand when you didn't have those battles to keep you awake?
Well, it was a bit tough because during the race I went several times to pilots, and yeah, I messed up a few things here and there. But yeah, you're always your best enemy, if I may say.
Yeah, definitely. I get what you mean. Yeah, it's always harder when you make the mistakes yourself through no fault of anyone else, but you still put in a great performance there, winning by, I think it was just over 10 seconds, 15 seconds, I think, at the line. And that bodes well for Monza that we come to in a couple of weeks' time. How's your preparation been like going into that round?
Actually, because of real-life duties, I couldn't practice at all during the last 7 days. So I put everything during the first week after Spa. And yeah, I came back home today to race.
Well, welcome back home, mate. And are you going to have a similar issue for Monza, the next race in 2 weeks, or will you be able to practice a bit more?
I will be able to practice the whole time.
The whole time. That's going to be good to know. We're going to know that the likes of James Ebram and also some other competitors as well, the likes of Justin Young, will definitely need to have their work cut out for you. But thank you, Theo, for joining us in the comms box. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out, though, on the broadcast?
Actually, still the same persons than last time. So Olivier and Jean-Baptiste, who my teammate during the championship, who sadly can't race anymore, but yeah, he still keep watching and support me.
Well, thank you very much. Great to have you in the comms box. Wishing you all the best in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Cecilia.
So that was Theo Schlerer, M-Class Victor, coming in for an interview. Let us bring in second place in the M-Class, James Ebram. And James, thankfully this time this race went a little bit smoother than Spa last time out. Good way to bounce back with a second place.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad result really. I started off a bit shaky, lost the rear going around Schumacher S's and cut the corner, got a horrific slowdown which cost me about 10 seconds. And had to work my way back through about maybe 5 or 6 cars, which probably cost a bit more time. So it could have been a bit closer than it was, but Theo did just an incredible job just keeping the laps going. I kept seeing the gap, and it was just always the same, never coming down. It was just, so he did an incredible job as well. So I couldn't catch him today. That was it. I was just sort of accepting that second place was the best that was going to happen today.
Was it just a matter of the circuit maybe playing into his hands a little bit more than yours, and maybe does that fill you with a bit more confidence going into the second round?
I'm actually quite exhausted from doing the Hockenheim 24s, so which we ended up winning in top split. So that was a really, really good result. So I am still quite tired from doing that. And because of that, I didn't get a huge amount of practice on this circuit. So I maybe did about 25, 30 laps practice total. So didn't quite get as much as I wanted, but still a good result. So onwards and upwards.
I'll tell you what, mate, congratulations on your win in the 24. That's certainly no mean feat. And we come to Monza in 2 weeks for the 5th round of the championship. then as well, the championship could be on your mind. Is that something you'll focus on in a couple of weeks' time?
We'll be doing the 24 on that weekend as well, but I'll be also focusing a lot on Monza because that is my circuit. But at least it was in Gran Turismo, so I'm hoping it translates over into iRacing.
Well, they're pretty different, but we'll see if that is able to work out for you, mate. I've also noticed as well, championship is definitely swinging your way as your nearest rival, Justin Young, finished a little bit further down the order, actually, in 13th, I think 14th in class, actually, which could really hamper his chances. But I guess that's helped you out to no end coming into Monza.
Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for Justin because he was running a really solid race and just got really unlucky with someone hitting him into the back of him, catching a wheel on the grass. So, obviously, I was hoping that things would be a bit closer, so it's a shame that he got taken out.
Well, you never know. It could still come close in the end of the season. I'm guessing you're hoping that it doesn't, James, but congratulations on your second place. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast, though?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to to Hash, Jamie, and Drew as well for the 24 hours for us winning, because they did an absolute stellar job. So I have to obviously congratulate them as well. The whole team as well, the sponsors, Hippo Management, TPI, and all of them, and the team as well. They've done excellent recently, so it's been a good sort of weekend, really.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, James, not only in second place, but on your 24 hours victory as well. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, mate.
Thank you, guys. Oh, yeah, and thank you for the stream as well.
No problemo, mate, no problem. So, with that is James Ebram, and I think we have one more driver lining up for an interview, and it's this man, Alvaro Fernandez Montes. Welcome, Alvaro, to the Colesbox. You finished 4th place in the AM category, but at the end, you had a little bit of a battle with your teammate, Melendez, just ahead of you.
Oh, thank you very much. I am very happy for this podium. Thank you very much on all the team, Iridium. Special thanks to Raquel and Priscilla, our engineers. And thanks to my colleagues Álvaro, Carlos, and Juancho. Finally, a clean race for me. It's a pleasure to be able to race in Apex, thanks to the organizations. There is a lot of level in this championship, and this helped the most novice to amateur to learn in each race. I am very, very happy.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that, Alvaro. And are you looking forward to the next race in Monza?
Yes, I'll stay in Monza. I love it, Monza.
He loves it. Oh, thank you, Alvaro, and wishing you all the very best, mate. And great interview as well. Your English is certainly top notch.
Sorry?
Your English is actually very good, mate.
Well, sorry, my English is I
think it's good.
A little bit. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Better than my Spanish, I can tell you that much.
Yes, I'm from Madrid, Spain.
Well, thank you very much, Alvaro. All the best in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And with that, Alex, we've concluded all of the interviews for the evening, and all that's left to do is, well, round out what has been a great evening's racing. Look forward to Monza and then bid our farewells.
Absolutely, and you alluded to the excellent English of Alvaro there, and in fact, every driver's English was brilliant. It's absolutely great to see. But I tell you what, we'll round off our live stream here on Simracersworld TV. This race featuring the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship Round 4 at the Nürburgring, and this race sponsored by All in Sport AIS. These are the results to cap us off at the end of this night here on Simracersworld. Benson Amethi takes the win from Peter Molnar and Peter Zuber. In the AM category, it is Theo Schlerer from James Ebram and Laszlo Burdeny. My name is Alex Everitt, Ed May alongside me. This has been round 4. We'll see you next time for round 5 at Monza in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to all of our channels, because we will see you next time in 2 weeks. Thank you for watching.